Welcome aboard, friends. You're now tuned into NO Harry. We're super excited to share today's story with you. What if Gringotts' DNA test revealed Harry heir to Slytherin Ravenclaw at age 5 and goblins crowned him king? If you enjoy what we do here, the best way to support us is by liking, commenting, and subscribing. We read every comment. Ready? Let's go. Chapter 1. The blood inheritance. The cupboard under the stairs was dark, save for a thin sliver of light that crept beneath the door. 5-year-old Harry Potter lay curled on his thin mattress, listening to the thunderous footsteps of his cousin Dudley as he deliberately jumped on each stair above Harry's head. Thump. 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 Dust rained down with each impact, falling into Harry's eyes and mouth. He didn't cry out. He'd learned long ago that complaining only made things worse. "Boy! Get up and make breakfast." Aunt Petunia's shrill voice cut through the house. The lock on Harry's cupboard clicked open. Harry rubbed his eyes behind his taped-together glasses and shuffled out into the hallway. He was small for his age, swimming in Dudley's old clothes, with a mop of unruly black hair that seemed to grow back overnight no matter how many times Aunt Petunia chopped it off. In the kitchen, Uncle Vernon sat behind his newspaper while Dudley counted the presents piled on the dining table. Harry silently took his place at the stove. He'd been cooking breakfast since he could reach the burners standing on a chair. Even then, he'd been burned more times than he could count. 27. Dudley's face screwed up in disappointment. "That's 2 less than last year." Uncle Vernon lowered his newspaper. "You missed the one from Aunt Marge, Dudders. It's behind the big one from Mummy and Daddy." 28, then. Dudley's face was turning red, the warning sign of an imminent tantrum. That still, Harry tuned out the familiar scene as he flipped bacon in the pan. The Dursleys always made a fuss over Dudley's birthday. For Harry's birthday, which had passed the previous week with no acknowledgement, there had been an extra chore list and a pair of Uncle Vernon's old socks. The mail slot clicked and letters thudded onto the doormat. "Get the mail, boy," Uncle Vernon grunted from behind his paper. Harry quickly slid the bacon onto a plate and hurried to the front door. 3 things lay on the doormat: a postcard from Uncle Vernon's sister Marge, a brown envelope that looked like a bill, and, Harry's heart stopped, a thick cream-colored envelope addressed to him. "Mr. H. Potter, the cupboard under the stairs 4, Privet Drive, Little Whinging, Surrey." The envelope was made of heavy parchment, and the address was written in a strange, glittering ink that shifted from green to silver as Harry tilted it in the light. The back bore a seal stamped in gold wax, an ornate letter G surrounded by strange symbols. Someone knew he slept in a cupboard. Someone had written to him. "Hurry up, boy!" Uncle Vernon shouted from the kitchen. "What are you doing, checking for letter bombs?" Harry carefully slid his letter into the waistband of his oversized trousers, tucking Dudley's shirt over it. Heart pounding, he returned to the kitchen and handed Uncle Vernon the bill and postcard. "Marge is ill," Uncle Vernon informed Aunt Petunia. "Ate a funny whelk." Harry slipped back to the stove, his mind racing. He would read the letter in his cupboard tonight, after everyone was asleep. But fate had other plans. "What's that sticking out of your shirt, boy?" Aunt Petunia's hawk-like eyes had spotted the edge of the envelope. Before Harry could react, Uncle Vernon's meaty hand shot out and snatched the letter from his waistband. "That's mine." Harry protested, making a desperate grab for it. Uncle Vernon held it out of reach, his small eyes widening as he read the address. "P. Petunia," he stammered, his face draining of color. Aunt Petunia peered at the envelope and let out a small scream. "Vernon! The cupboard, they know about the cupboard." "Who knows what?" Dudley demanded, trying to grab the letter from his father. "Out! All of you, out!" Uncle Vernon stuffed the letter into his pocket and shoved Harry and Dudley into the hallway, slamming the kitchen door behind them. Through the keyhole, Harry watched his aunt and uncle's frantic discussion. Their faces were pale, their voices hushed but panicked. "They're watching the house," Uncle Vernon muttered. Could be spying on us right now. But what should we do? Aunt Petunia wrung her hands. Should we write back? Tell them, no, Uncle Vernon said firmly. We'll ignore it. If they don't get an answer, yes, that's best. That night, Harry found himself moved into Dudley's second bedroom, surrounded by broken toys and discarded possessions. Any other time, he would have been thrilled at the upgrade, but now he could only think about the mysterious letter. Who had sent it? What did it say? And why had it terrified the Dursleys so much? His questions were answered the very next morning when the doorbell rang. Harry was dusting the living room shelves when he heard Aunt Petunia's startled gasp from the front hall. Curious, he crept closer to listen. "Good morning, madam," said a crisp, businesslike voice. "I represent Gringotts Bank regarding an inheritance matter for Mr. Harry Potter. May I speak with him?" Harry's heart leaped into his throat. A bank? Inheritance? His parents had left him something. "There's been a mistake," Aunt Petunia's voice was shrill with panic. "The boy has nothing, madam, there is no mistake." The voice was polite but firm. "Our records are quite clear. If Mr. Potter is unavailable, I am authorized to return with legal representatives." There was a loaded pause before Aunt Petunia called, her voice strained, "Boy. Come here." Harry stepped into the hall to find a strange sight on the doorstep. The visitor was short, barely taller than Harry himself, dressed in an impeccable pinstriped suit. But what made Harry stare was the visitor's face, sharp, clever, with pointed ears and a long nose. This was no ordinary man. The visitor smiled, revealing pointed teeth. "Ah, Mr. Potter. Excellent. I am Grip Hook, Junior Accounts Manager at Gringotts. May I come in?" Before Aunt Petunia could refuse, the strange little man had stepped past her into the house. He surveyed the immaculate living room with shrewd eyes that missed nothing. "Sit down, Mr. Potter," Grip Hook said, taking a seat himself. He pulled a folder from his briefcase and looked expectantly at Harry. Harry perched on the edge of the sofa, aware of Aunt Petunia hovering anxiously in the doorway. "What's Gringotts?" he asked. Grip Hook's eyes narrowed. "You don't know about Gringotts? The Wizarding Bank?" "Wizarding?" Harry repeated, his mouth suddenly dry. Grip Hook's gaze shot to Aunt Petunia, who had gone white as a sheet. "I see," he said softly. "Mr. Potter, you are a wizard, as were your parents. Gringotts handles financial matters for the magical community, including inheritances. You were supposed to have been informed of your heritage long before now." Harry felt as though the floor had disappeared beneath him. A wizard? His parents were wizards. "But my parents died in a car crash." "A car crash?" Grip Hook looked genuinely shocked. "Lily and James Potter did not die in a car crash, Mr. Potter. They were murdered by a dark wizard, a matter I'm not at liberty to discuss further at present." He shot another cold look at Aunt Petunia. "It seems there are many things you haven't been told." Harry's head swam with questions, but Grip Hook was already continuing. "Our records indicate you've come of inheritance testing age. The Potter accounts have been well maintained since your parents' deaths, but there may be other inheritances you're entitled to through magical bloodlines. These can only be claimed through a heritage test, which must be conducted at Gringotts." "He's not going anywhere," Aunt Petunia finally found her voice. "We're his guardians, and we forbid it." Grip Hook smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Mrs. Dursley, I have here," he produced an official-looking document, "the magical guardianship papers signed by your sister and her husband. Should Mr. Potter be denied his right to claim his inheritance, Gringotts is authorized to investigate the circumstances of his care. I'm certain you wouldn't want that." The threat hung in the air. Aunt Petunia's lips thinned into a white line. "When would I have to go?" Harry asked, trying to keep the excitement from his voice. "Today, if possible," Grip Hook replied. "The test must be performed on your 5th magical birthday, which I believe was last week." We have a limited window of opportunity. Take him then, Aunt Petunia said abruptly. But don't bring him back full of that freakishness. Griphook's expression darkened momentarily before he turned to Harry. Mr. Potter, please collect any personal items you wish to bring. We may be gone overnight. Harry didn't need to be told twice. He raced to his new bedroom and looked around. He had almost nothing to bring, just the clothes on his back and a small plastic soldier he'd rescued from Dudley's trash. He pocketed the toy and hurried back downstairs. Griphook was waiting by the door, his expression unreadable. Ready, Mr. Potter? We'll be traveling by portkey, a magical method of transportation. Please hold onto my arm and don't let go. Harry tentatively gripped Griphook's sleeve. The goblin produced a plain gold coin from his pocket. 3, 2, 1, the world dissolved into a whirlwind of color and sound. Harry felt a hook behind his navel, yanking him forward. His feet left the ground, and he was spinning, Griphook's arm the only solid thing in a blur of wind and color. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. Harry stumbled, his knees buckling as his feet hit solid marble. Griphook steadied him with a surprisingly strong grip. First portkey, the goblin asked, not unkindly. Most wizards find it disconcerting. Harry nodded, too dizzy to speak as he took in his surroundings. They stood in an enormous hall of white marble, bustling with activity. Strange-looking beings like Griphook manned high counters, weighing jewels on brass scales and examining coins through eyeglasses. Humans in strange clothing, robes of various colors, waited in lines or spoke with the creatures. Welcome to Gringotts Bank, Mr. Potter, Griphook said. And welcome to the wizarding world. Harry followed Griphook across the vast marble floor, trying not to gawk at everything around him. Men and women in colorful robes conducted business with the strange creatures, goblins, Griphook had called them, while magical quills wrote by themselves and paper airplanes zoomed overhead between departments. This way, Mr. Potter, Griphook led him past the main counters toward a hallway guarded by goblins in scarlet and gold uniforms. They bowed to Griphook, who nodded curtly in return. The hallway opened into a circular chamber with doors leading in every direction. Griphook selected one marked with silver runes and ushered Harry inside. The office beyond was elegant but sparse, dominated by a massive desk carved from a single piece of dark wood. Behind the desk sat an older goblin with steel-gray hair and half-moon spectacles perched on his long nose. He looked up as they entered, his shrewd eyes fixing immediately on Harry's forehead where, half hidden by his messy hair, sat the lightning bolt scar he'd had for as long as he could remember. Director Ravenclaw, Griphook bowed deeply. I present Mr. Harry Potter for his heritage testing. The older goblin rose and came around the desk. Though barely taller than Harry, he carried himself with unmistakable authority. Welcome, Mr. Potter. I am Ravenclaw, Director of Gringotts London. Your arrival has been anticipated. Thank you, sir, Harry replied, unsure of the proper etiquette. Though I'm not sure why. I only just learned about all this. He gestured vaguely at their magical surroundings. Ragnarok's bushy eyebrows rose. Indeed? You were raised without knowledge of magic? Of your parents' world? Harry nodded. My aunt and uncle told me my parents died in a car crash. They never mentioned magic. Ragnarok exchanged a significant look with Griphook. Most concerning. The wizarding world believes you've been raised with full knowledge of your heritage and status. I wonder what else Dumbledore has misrepresented. Dumbledore? Harry asked. The matter is complicated, Ragnarok said. For now, let us proceed with the heritage test. It will establish which vaults and properties you may claim, beyond the Potter estate. Ragnarok gestured to a small wooden table Harry hadn't noticed before. On it sat a shallow stone basin inscribed with runes, a silver dagger, and a roll of parchment. The procedure is simple but ancient, Ragnarok explained. 3 drops of blood into the basin will activate the heritage magic. The results will appear on the parchment. Harry approached the table cautiously. Will it hurt? Momentarily, Ragnarok admitted. But we have healing salve ready. Taking a deep breath, Harry picked up the dagger. The handle was warm in his palm, almost vibrating with contained magic. He pressed the tip to his index finger and winced as it pierced the skin. 3 drops of bright red blood fell into the basin, where they swirled and glowed with golden light. The moment the 3rd drop touched the stone, the room filled with a strange humming energy. The parchment on the table unrolled itself and began to glow. Lines of text appeared, written in the same shifting green-silver ink as Harry's Gringotts letter. But it was the goblin's reaction that alarmed Harry. Ragnarok had gone completely still, his eyes wide with disbelief. Griphook made a choking sound and actually staggered backward. What is it? Harry asked anxiously. What's wrong? Ragnarok seemed unable to speak. He simply turned the parchment so Harry could read it. Heritage test results for Harry James Potter. Primary bloodlines: Potter, paternal, heir apparent, Black, secondary heir through godfather, Evans, maternal, Muggleborn. Ancient bloodlines: Slytherin, maternal, direct heir by conquest and blood, Ravenclaw, maternal, direct heir by blood, Peveril, paternal, heir by blood. Magic affinities: natural accoutrements. Parselmouth, Slytherin gift, analytical intelligence, Ravenclaw gift, Goblin friend, rare designation, fulfiller of the ancient prophecy. See Goblin archives, the twice-blooded king, foreign magic detection, blood-based ward anchor, placed by APWBD. Male diversion wards, placed by APWBD. Magic suppression bindings, placed by APWBD. Soul fragment, dark magic, source, TM Riddle. Harry read the document twice, understanding little of it. What does it mean? He asked finally. Ragnarok had recovered his composure. It means, Mr. Potter, he said in a hushed voice, that you are not merely the boy who lived or the Potter heir. You are the direct descendant of 2 Hogwarts founders, Slytherin and Ravenclaw, a combination never before recorded. Hogwarts? Harry repeated. The wizarding school where your parents studied, Griphook supplied. Founded by the 4 greatest witches and wizards of the age, Godric Gryffindor, Helga Hufflepuff, Rowena Ravenclaw, and Salazar Slytherin. Ragnarok was staring at Harry with a new intensity. For centuries, the Goblin Nation has kept an ancient prophecy. It speaks of a twice-blooded heir, one who would carry the blood of both Slytherin and Ravenclaw, who would unite our peoples and usher in a new era. Harry's head was spinning. I don't understand. How can I be related to these founders? My mother was Muggleborn, that means non-magical parents, right? Magic works in mysterious ways, Ragnarok said. Sometimes it lies dormant in a bloodline for generations before manifesting again. Your mother's family must have descended from squibs, non-magical children born to magical parents, from both the Ravenclaw and Slytherin lines. But what does it mean for me? Harry asked, overwhelmed. Ragnarok and Griphook exchanged another loaded glance. It means, Mr. Potter, Ragnarok said solemnly, that according to our most sacred laws, you are the rightful Goblin King. The silence that followed was deafening. What? Harry stammered. The prophecy speaks of a human child who would bear the blood of wisdom and cunning, Ravenclaw and Slytherin, and would come to us in his 5th year, marked by darkness but pure of heart. Ragnarok's eyes flicked to Harry's scar. You fit every criterion. The magic itself has designated you as Goblin Friend, a title bestowed perhaps once in a century. Harry sank into the nearest chair, his legs suddenly unable to support him. But I can't be a king. I'm just Harry. I don't know anything about magic or goblins or any of this. You will learn, Ragnarok said firmly. But first, there are more urgent matters to address. He pointed to the last line of the parchment. This soul fragment, it's dark magic of the worst kind. A piece of another wizard's soul attached to you, likely on the night your parents died. Harry's hand flew to his scar. Inside me? There's a piece of someone else inside me. The one who gave you that scar, Ragnar confirmed grimly. Lord Voldemort, or as he was born, Tom Marvolo Riddle. The dark wizard who killed my parents. Harry felt sick. The very same, Ragnar nodded. This explains much about how you survived that night. When he tried to kill you, something went wrong with his spell. It rebounded, destroying his body, but a fragment of his soul latched onto the only living being present, you. Can you remove it? Harry asked, horrified at the thought of carrying a piece of his parents' murderer. We can, Ragnar said. The Goblin Nation possesses magics unknown to wizard kind. But it must be done before your coronation. No impure magic can be present during the ritual. Coronation. Harry felt like he was drowning in new information. You're really serious about me being a king? The first human goblin king in our recorded history, Griphook said, speaking for the first time since the test results appeared. It is unprecedented. But what would I have to do? Harry asked. I can't stay here forever. I have to go back to the Dursleys. You will never return to those people, Ragnar said with sudden fierceness. The heritage test has revealed binding magic and suppression wards placed on you, likely by Albus Dumbledore, the headmaster of Hogwarts. They've been limiting your magical growth and keeping you controllable. As Goblin King, you would be under our protection and beyond wizarding guardianship laws. Harry's mind reeled at the possibilities. Never going back to the cupboard, the chores, the hunger, and loneliness. And you can teach me about magic? About my parents? All that and more, Ragnar promised. But first, we must remove the soul fragment and prepare for the coronation. The ritual must take place on the night of the new moon, tonight. Harry took a deep breath. Part of him thought this might all be an elaborate dream, that he'd wake up in his cupboard to Aunt Petunia's shrill voice. But the Goblin Bank felt more real than anything he'd ever known. What do I have to do? He asked, his voice steadier than he felt. Ragnar smiled for the first time, a fierce, toothy expression. You need only be brave, young Harry Potter. The magic and the Goblin Nation will do the rest. Harry had never imagined such a place could exist beneath the streets of London. After leaving Ragnar's office, they had boarded a cart that plunged deep into the earth, racing along tracks that twisted and turned through enormous caverns. Now they had arrived at what Griphook called the heart of the nation, a vast underground chamber carved from living rock. Hundreds of goblins filled tiered stone seats surrounding a central platform. Torches burned with strange blue-white flames, casting everything in an otherworldly light. The murmur of goblin voices, harsh and musical at once, echoed off the distant ceiling. They've all come to witness. Harry whispered to Griphook as they waited in a small antechamber. Word travels quickly among our kind, Griphook replied. Many disbelieved when they heard, but none would miss the fulfillment of the ancient prophecy. Harry fidgeted with the edges of the ceremonial robe they'd given him to wear. The fabric was unlike anything he'd felt before, lighter than silk but stronger than leather, in a deep green embroidered with silver and bronze patterns that seemed to shift when he wasn't looking directly at them. I still don't understand why the prophecy is so important to goblins, Harry said. Why would you want a human king? Griphook's expression softened slightly. For centuries, wizards have treated our kind as lesser beings, denying us wand rights, restricting our movements, limiting our control even over our own crafted treasures. The prophecy speaks of a bridge builder who would unite our worlds and bring a new age of recognition and respect. Before Harry could ask more questions, Ragnar entered the antechamber. He now wore elaborate golden armor and carried a staff topped with a glowing crystal. It is time, he announced. First, we will cleanse you of the dark taint. Then, if you survive, the coronation will proceed. If I survive? Harry squeaked. Ragnar placed a gnarled hand on Harry's shoulder. The soul-cleansing ritual is dangerous, I will not lie to you. But you have already survived the killing curse as an infant. Your magic is strong, even bound as it is. Harry swallowed hard. What happens if I don't make it? Then you will join your parents beyond the veil, Ragnarok said simply. But I have faith in you, Harry Potter. The prophecy would not have named you if you were not meant to survive. With that less than reassuring thought, Harry followed Ragnarok and Griphook into the main chamber. A hush fell over the assembled goblins as he walked toward the central platform. He felt hundreds of eyes tracking his movements, heard the whispers that followed in his wake. In the center of the platform stood a circular pool filled with what looked like liquid silver. Around it, 12 elder goblins in ceremonial armor had taken positions, each holding a different object, a sword, a cup, a wand, and other items Harry didn't recognize. Ragnarok guided Harry to stand before the pool. Remove your robe, he instructed. Nervously, Harry slipped off the ceremonial garment, standing in just the simple white shift they'd given him underneath. The cool underground air raised goosebumps on his arms. The ritual has 3 parts, Ragnarok explained, his voice carrying throughout the chamber. First, the cleansing to remove the soul fragment. Second, the breaking of the bindings on your magic. Third, the coronation itself. He turned to address the gathered goblins. We call upon the ancient magics of earth and stone, of silver and gold, to witness this rite. A rumble of approval ran through the crowd. Harry James Potter, Ragnarok continued, step into the pool of purification. Heart hammering against his ribs, Harry stepped onto the first of 3 stone steps leading down into the silver liquid. It was warm against his feet, tingling with magic. He descended the second step, and then the third, until he stood waist deep in the pool. The silver substance swirled around him, neither wet nor dry, but something in between. It reminded Harry of the way moonlight looked when reflected on water. Ragnarok raised his staff. Let the cleansing begin. The 12 elder goblins began a chant in a language Harry didn't understand, guttural and rhythmic, rising and falling like waves against stone. The silver liquid started to glow, pulsing in time with the chant. Harry felt a strange warmth spreading through his body, concentrating in his scar. The familiar dull ache he'd lived with for as long as he could remember intensified to a sharp, burning pain. What's happening? He gasped. The silver is drawing out the fragment, Ragnarok called over the chanting. Do not resist it, Harry Potter. The pain grew until Harry's vision blurred. His scar felt as though it were being torn open. Something inside him was fighting to stay, clawing at his mind, screaming in a high, cold voice. No. The boy is mine. The voice wasn't just in his head, it echoed throughout the chamber, causing several goblins to cry out in alarm. The silver liquid around Harry turned black where it touched his scar, dark tendrils spreading through the pool. It resists, one of the elder goblins shouted. The fragment is too strong. Pour in the basilisk venom. Ragnarok commanded. One of the elders uncorked a vial of greenish liquid and tipped it into the pool. The moment it touched the silver, Harry's world exploded in agony. He screamed as liquid fire seemed to course through his veins. His scar split open, blood and something black and oily pouring from the wound. The dark substance rose from the pool, coalescing into a writhing, screaming face, a twisted mockery of a human visage with glowing red eyes and snake-like features. I will return, the apparition shrieked. I cannot be destroyed. Ragnarok thrust his staff into the heart of the manifestation. Begone, fragment of Tom Riddle. You have no place here. A blinding flash of golden light erupted from the crystal atop the staff. The dark apparition gave one final, blood-curdling scream before disintegrating into ash that dissolved in the air. Harry collapsed, the pain suddenly gone. The silver liquid supported his weight, keeping him from sinking. As the darkness receded from his vision, he realized the constant background pressure he'd never known he was carrying, like a weight on his shoulders or cotton in his ears, had vanished. The world seemed sharper, clearer, more vibrant. It is done, Ragnarok announced. The taint is removed. A roar of approval rose from the gathered goblins. Harry straightened, finding strength returning to his limbs. He touched his forehead and found the scar was no longer raised and angry, but flat and cool to the touch. "Now for the bindings," Ragnarok said. He gestured to the elders, who stepped forward, forming a tighter circle around the pool. "These bindings were placed to limit your power," Ragnarok explained to Harry. "To keep you compliant and controllable. They must be broken before you can truly become who you are meant to be." The elders raised their various objects toward Harry. "Blood of your blood, magic of your magic," they chanted in unison. "Free from darkness, free from chains, rise as yourself, whole and true." A web of golden light surrounded Harry, revealing intricate patterns of magic wrapped around his body like glowing chains. As the elders continued their chant, the chains began to crack, golden light spilling from the fissures. Harry gasped as each breaking bond released a flood of sensation. Colors became more vibrant, sounds more distinct, the magic in the air around him suddenly tangible, like he could reach out and grasp it. The final binding, a thick band around his core, shattered with a sound like breaking glass. Magic rushed into the void, filling Harry with warmth and power. He felt it dancing beneath his skin, responding to his emotions, connecting him to the world in ways he'd never imagined. "The bindings are broken," Ragnarok announced. The assembled goblins stomped their feet in approval, the sound reverberating throughout the chamber. "And now," Ragnarok continued, "the coronation." The silver liquid began to drain from the pool, leaving Harry standing dry on the stone bottom. One of the elders approached with a small, ornate chest. "From this moment forward," Ragnarok intoned, "you are no longer merely Harry James Potter. You are Harry James Potter Ravenclaw Slytherin, Goblin Friend, and King." The elder opened the chest, revealing a circlet of an unknown metal, neither silver nor gold, but something with the luster of both. Set into the front was a large emerald flanked by sapphires, the colors of Slytherin and Ravenclaw. Ragnarok lifted the circlet. This crown was forged at the time of the prophecy, awaiting the twice-blooded heir. It contains magic beyond wizarding understanding, magic that will help guide and protect you. He placed the circlet on Harry's head. The metal was cool for only a moment before warming to his skin, adjusting its size to fit him perfectly. The moment the crown settled, Harry felt a rush of something flowing into his mind. Not memories exactly, but knowledge, understanding of goblin customs, language, magic. And with it came two distinct presences, like echoes of long-departed voices. "The founders," Harry whispered in awe. Ragnarok's eyes widened. "You sense them? The imprints of Ravenclaw and Slytherin?" Harry nodded. They weren't complete personalities, but impressions, Ravenclaw's analytical brilliance and insatiable curiosity, Slytherin's cunning strategy and fierce protectiveness. Both regarded him with interest, examining him from within his own mind. "So small," came a woman's thoughtful voice. "But with such potential." "He has survived much already," replied a man's calculating tone. "And will face more. We will guide him." "They're talking to each other," Harry said wonderingly. "They're in my head, but they know they're just impressions, not really alive." Murmurs of amazement spread through the chamber. "It is said the founders embedded aspects of their knowledge in artifacts," Ragnarok said. "But for you to access both simultaneously, this is unprecedented." Harry stepped out of the now empty pool, the crown a reassuring weight on his brow. He felt different, taller somehow, though physically unchanged. The knowledge flowing into him was overwhelming but not frightening. It felt right, as though pieces of a puzzle were finally falling into place. Ragnarok knelt before him. One by one, the elder goblins followed suit, until every goblin in the chamber had dropped to one knee. "Hail, Harry James Potter Ravenclaw Slytherin," Ragnarok proclaimed. "Goblin King, Bridge Builder, Fulfiller of Prophecy." "Hail," the assembled goblins roared in unison. Harry stood, a 5-year-old boy in a white shift with a magical crown, surrounded by hundreds of kneeling goblins. The absurdity of it all nearly made him laugh, but there was also an undeniable rightness to it. "Stand tall," whispered Slytherin's impression. "You were born for this." "Listen and learn," added Ravenclaw's. "Knowledge is your greatest weapon." Harry took a deep breath. "Rise," he said, the goblin word feeling natural on his tongue. "We have much to do." Hours later, exhausted but exhilarated, Harry sat in what were now his private chambers deep within Gringotts. The room was a curious blend of goblin austerity and human comfort, stone walls carved with intricate runes, but also a four-poster bed with silk hangings, a roaring fireplace, and shelves filled with books. Ragnock sat across from him, reviewing the events of the day while Griphook took notes on a long parchment. "The ritual was more taxing than anticipated," Ragnock said. "The soul fragment fought harder than we expected. It confirms our suspicions about the nature of the magic Voldemort employed, soul-splitting, or Horcruxes, among the darkest arts known." Harry, wrapped in a comfortable robe and sipping hot chocolate, nodded. The founder impressions had been explaining concepts to him throughout the evening, helping him understand the complexities of his situation. "Ravenclaw thinks there may be more fragments," he said. "Slytherin agrees, he says the ritual wouldn't have been so difficult otherwise." Ragnock looked troubled. "If Voldemort created multiple Horcruxes, he cannot truly be dead. His spirit may still exist, seeking to regain physical form. Then I'll have to face him again someday," Harry said with a certainty beyond his years. "Yes," Ragnock agreed. "But not alone, and not unprepared as your parents were. As Goblin King, you command resources beyond what most wizards could imagine." Harry set down his mug. "I need to understand everything, about my parents, about Voldemort, about why I was left with the Dursleys. And about this Dumbledore person who put bindings on my magic." Albus Dumbledore, Ragnock's voice held carefully controlled anger, is considered the greatest wizard of the modern age. Headmaster of Hogwarts, Supreme Mugwump of the International Confederation of Wizards, and Chief Warlock of the Wizengamot, their High Court. He was your parents' mentor and the one who placed you with your mother's sister after their deaths. "Why?" Harry asked. "Why there, when they hated magic so much?" "He claimed blood protections," Ragnock said. "A ward anchored in your mother's sacrifice and her sister's blood. But the bindings he placed on you suggest other motives. Controlling your power, perhaps ensuring you remained malleable." "He wanted a weapon," Harry said, the realization coming partly from his own intuition and partly from Slytherin's cynical assessment. "A symbol he could shape." "Perhaps," Ragnock acknowledged. "But his plans have been disrupted. The blood wards at your relative's home collapsed the moment you accepted the crown. By now, he likely knows something has changed." As if on cue, Sharpclaw, one of the younger goblins assigned as Harry's personal guard, entered the chamber with a bow. "My king, a wizard demands entrance to the bank. Albus Dumbledore claims guardianship of Harry Potter and insists on seeing him immediately." Harry exchanged glances with Ragnock. "That was fast." "He likely had monitoring charms tied to the wards," Ragnock said. "What is your will, my king?" The question wasn't merely formal. As Goblin King, Harry's word was law in Gringotts. He could refuse to see Dumbledore entirely. Confrontation now would be premature, Ravenclaw's impression advised. "You need more information, more preparation." "But showing fear would be worse," Slytherin countered. "Meet him, but on your terms, with protections in place." Harry considered both perspectives, then made his decision. "I'll see him, but here in my chambers, with you present, Director Ragnock. And I want truth spells in place." Ragnock smiled approvingly. "A wise decision, my king. Sharpclaw, inform Headmaster Dumbledore that he may enter Gringotts and will be escorted to King Harry's chambers. Ensure he understands he comes as a supplicant, not a guardian." Sharpclaw bowed and departed. Ragnock turned to Harry. "We have perhaps 10 minutes before he arrives. Is there anything specific you wish to know from him? Harry thought for a moment. Why he left me with people who hated magic. Why he bound my powers. What he knows about Voldemort still being alive somehow. And he hesitated, what really happened to my parents that night. Ragnarok nodded gravely. All important questions. Remember, as Goblin King, you outrank him within these walls. He holds no power here. Harry straightened in his chair, adjusting the crown that still sat upon his head. It had grown lighter throughout the evening, almost as though it were becoming part of him. I'm ready, he said with more confidence than he felt. The minutes passed quickly as goblins entered to prepare the chamber. Runes were activated along the walls, glowing softly with protective magic. A formal chair, not quite a throne, was positioned for Harry, with Ragnarok's seat slightly behind and to the right. Finally, Sharpclaw returned. Headmaster Dumbledore approaches, my king. Harry took his place in the formal chair, trying to appear calmer than he felt. Ragnarok stood beside him, a reassuring presence. The doors swung open to reveal a tall, thin man with flowing silver hair and beard. He wore magnificent robes of deep purple scattered with silver stars, and half-moon spectacles perched on a crooked nose. His blue eyes twinkled as they swept the room, until they landed on Harry and the crown upon his head. For an instant, the twinkle vanished, replaced by shock and something like fear. Harry, my boy, Dumbledore said, quickly recovering his composure. There you are. You gave us quite a scare, disappearing from your aunt and uncle's home. Headmaster Dumbledore, Harry replied, the formal goblin greeting coming naturally to him. You stand before the Goblin King. Approach and be recognized. The old wizard hesitated, clearly surprised by Harry's manner of speech and the situation he found himself in. I see there have been some unexpected developments, Dumbledore said carefully. Perhaps we could speak privately, Harry. There seems to be some confusion about your status and safety. There is no confusion, Ragnarok stated flatly. Harry Potter has been recognized by blood and magic as heir to both Slytherin and Ravenclaw, fulfilling the ancient goblin prophecy. He has been cleansed of the soul fragment you left within him and freed of the bindings you placed upon his magic. He is now, by law and magic, the Goblin King. Dumbledore's face paled. Soul fragment. I had suspected, and bindings. I assure you, any magical restrictions were for Harry's protection during his formative years. We are not here to listen to excuses, Harry interrupted, Slytherin's impression guiding his words. You will answer my questions truthfully. The chamber has been warded against deception. Indeed, a soft golden glow had surrounded Dumbledore the moment he entered, a truth-compelling spell that would not force him to speak but would reveal any lies. Dumbledore glanced at the glowing runes around the room and sighed. Very well, Harry. What would you like to know? Why did you leave me with people who hated magic? Who kept me in a cupboard and treated me like a house elf? Harry's voice trembled slightly despite his attempt at regal composure. The golden glow around Dumbledore intensified, signaling his internal struggle. I placed you with your mother's sister because of the blood protection, he said finally. Lily Potter's sacrifice created a powerful shield that could be maintained through her blood connection to Petunia. It was the safest place for you, magically speaking. The glow flickered, indicating a partial truth. That's not the whole reason, Harry pressed. Dumbledore sighed heavily. No. I also believed, that being raised away from your fame, from the adulation of the wizarding world, would be better for your character. And the glow pulsed as he struggled against the truth spell. I thought that a certain amount of hardship would make you more receptive to guidance when you return to our world. Ragnarok made a disgusted noise. You wanted him desperate for affection. Grateful for rescue. Malleable to your plans. Dumbledore did not deny it. The prophecy demanded difficult choices, Director Ragnarok. What prophecy? Harry demanded. A prophecy made before your birth, Dumbledore said reluctantly. It stated that a child born as the seventh month died, to parents who had thrice defied Voldemort, would have the power to vanquish the Dark Lord. Voldemort learned of part of this prophecy and targeted your family because of it. So my parents died because of a prophecy? Harry felt cold despite the warm room. They died protecting you, Dumbledore corrected gently. A choice they made willingly, knowing the risks. And the bindings on my magic? Harry continued. Were those for my protection too? Here, Dumbledore looked genuinely uncomfortable. Your magical core was unusual. Damaged, I thought, by the killing curse. I placed certain restrictive enchantments to help it develop normally, without dangerous outbursts. The glow flashed red, a clear lie. Try again, Ragnarok growled. The truth this time. Dumbledore's shoulders sagged. Your power, even as an infant, was extraordinary. The killing curse should have destroyed you, yet you survived. I feared what such power might become without proper guidance. The restrictions were to ensure you developed, as expected. As a weapon against Voldemort, Harry said flatly. Not as a person. As both, Dumbledore insisted. I have always cared for your well-being, Harry. The glow remained steady, he believed what he said, at least. Did you know about the soul fragment in my scar? Harry asked. I suspected, Dumbledore admitted. But I believed it could only be removed when Voldemort himself tried to reclaim it, or upon your death. I had no knowledge of goblin methods to extract it safely. Or perhaps you didn't want it removed, Ragnarok suggested coldly. Perhaps it served your plans to have the boy connected to the Dark Lord. Dumbledore didn't answer directly. What's done is done. The question now is what happens next. Harry must return to the wizarding world, to Hogwarts when he turns 11, to fulfill his destiny. I will attend Hogwarts, Harry said, having already discussed this with Ragnarok. But not as Harry Potter, the orphan boy under your thumb. As Harry Potter Ravenclaw Slytherin, Goblin King. And I will not return to the Dursleys. Ever. The blood protection, Dumbledore began. Is unnecessary now that I have goblin protection, Harry finished firmly. I will live here, at Gringotts, until I attend Hogwarts. I will learn both goblin and wizarding magic, history, and culture. And I will prepare to face Voldemort on my terms, not yours. Dumbledore studied Harry for a long moment, taking in the determined set of his jaw, the gleam of intelligence in his green eyes, and the crown that sat naturally upon his head as though born to it. You have your mother's eyes, he said finally. But perhaps more of your father's spirit than I anticipated. Very well, Harry. I cannot force you to return to the Dursleys, especially not with your new status. But I hope you will allow me to help prepare you for what lies ahead. We will consider your offer, Ragnarok answered before Harry could. But any future interaction will be on King Harry's terms, with goblin representatives present. Dumbledore nodded slowly. I understand. May I at least send someone to teach you about the wizarding world? Professor McGonagall perhaps, she was your parents' head of house and a dear friend to them. Harry glanced at Ragnarok, who gave a slight nod. That would be acceptable, Harry said. But she comes as a teacher, not a guardian or your representative. Of course, Dumbledore agreed. He seemed to have aged years during their conversation, the twinkle in his eyes notably absent. May I ask one more thing, Harry? You may ask. Are you happy? Will you be happy here, among the goblins? The question caught Harry off guard. He considered it seriously. I don't know yet, he answered honestly. But I'm free. I'm learning who I really am. And for the first time, I have a place where I belong. That's more than I had yesterday. Dumbledore nodded, a complicated emotion crossing his face. Then I wish you well, Goblin King Harry. Until we meet again. With a formal bow that seemed to cost him some pride, Dumbledore turned and followed Sharpclaw from the chamber. When the doors closed behind them, Harry slumped in his chair, emotionally drained. "Did I do all right?" he asked Ragnarok anxiously. The Goblin director placed a gnarled hand on Harry's shoulder. "You did magnificently, my king." Dumbledore came expecting a confused child he could manipulate back into his plans. He found a ruler secure in his power. It was most satisfying to witness. Harry managed a tired smile. "What happens now?" "Now, you rest," Ragnarok said firmly. "Tomorrow, your education begins in earnest. There is much to learn before you take your place in both worlds." As Ragnarok took his leave, Harry climbed into the enormous four-poster bed. Despite the day's overwhelming events, he felt a peace he had never known at Privet Drive. The founder impressions in his mind had quieted to a gentle background presence, like trusted friends keeping watch. For the first time in his memory, Harry fell asleep feeling safe, valued, and full of hope for the future. In the darkness beneath London, the Goblin Nation celebrated the fulfillment of their ancient prophecy. And in a castle far to the north, an old wizard paced his office, carefully reconsidering long-laid plans that had suddenly, irrevocably changed. The wizarding world had no idea that everything was about to be different. The boy who lived had become the Goblin King, and nothing would ever be the same again. Chapter 2, The Crown's Weight. Morning light didn't penetrate the deep chambers of Gringotts, but Harry awoke to a gentle glow emanating from enchanted crystals embedded in the ceiling. For a moment, he thought he was back in his cupboard at Privet Drive. Then his fingers brushed against the soft silk sheets, and the events of the previous day came rushing back. He sat up, half expecting the crown to have disappeared, a fantastic dream fading with the night. But there it sat on a cushioned pedestal beside his bed, gleaming in the crystal light, neither silver nor gold, but something more ancient, set with emerald and sapphires. Harry reached for his glasses, then paused. He could see perfectly. The perpetual blur that had defined his world was gone, replaced by crystal clarity. Another gift of the cleansing ritual, perhaps, or the breaking of Dumbledore's bindings. A soft knock sounded at the door. "Enter," Harry called, the formal goblin inflection coming naturally to his tongue. Sharpclaw stepped into the chamber and bowed. The young goblin warrior had been assigned as Harry's personal guard and guide. Unlike most goblins Harry had seen, Sharpclaw was relatively tall and lean, with amber eyes that missed nothing. "Good morning, my king," Sharpclaw said. "Director Ragnarok requests your presence for breakfast and the beginning of your education." "Thank you, Sharpclaw," Harry replied, climbing out of bed. He noticed fresh clothing laid out for him, not wizarding robes, but a blend of goblin and human styles, black trousers, a crisp white shirt and a formal waistcoat in deep green with bronze buttons. "Did you sleep well?" Sharpclaw asked, his tone formal but with genuine curiosity. Harry sensed the young goblin was still adjusting to serving a human king, especially one who was only 5 years old. "Better than I ever have," Harry admitted as he dressed. The clothes fit perfectly, magical tailoring, he assumed. "No nightmares." "The soul fragment likely caused them," Sharpclaw explained. "Dark magic often corrupts dreams." Harry nodded, remembering the frequent nightmares he'd suffered, flashes of green light and high, cold laughter. He hadn't realized they were memories. "Will you wear the crown today?" Sharpclaw asked, indicating the circlet. Harry hesitated. The crown felt right when he wore it, but also weighty with responsibility. A king should look the part, came Slytherin's impression. Especially a young one. Yes, Harry decided, carefully placing the circlet on his head. Immediately, the founder impressions grew stronger, their knowledge more accessible. "You'll need us today," Ravenclaw's voice whispered. "So much to learn." Sharpclaw led Harry through corridors of polished stone, deeper into the goblin realm beneath London. Other goblins they passed bowed deeply, their expressions a mixture of awe and lingering disbelief. Harry nodded in return, trying to project a confidence he didn't entirely feel. "They're still surprised," Harry observed quietly. "The prophecy is older than any living goblin," Sharpclaw replied. Many thought it merely a legend, a story to give hope during difficult times. And then you arrived, a human child, but with the blood of the great founders and magic unlike any we've seen. They reached a large oak door inscribed with runes. Sharpclaw knocked once, and the door swung open to reveal a circular chamber dominated by a round table. Ragnarok was already seated, along with several elder goblins Harry recognized from the coronation ritual. King Harry, Ragnarok rose and bowed. I trust you rested well after yesterday's events. I did, thank you, Director, Harry replied, taking the seat indicated, a chair slightly larger than the others, with the Goblin Nation's crest carved into its back. Breakfast was a curious mixture of traditional goblin fare and human food. Harry sampled everything, finding the goblin dishes surprisingly appealing, heartier and more flavorful than he'd expected. The conversation flowed around him, mostly in gobbledygook, the goblin language. Though he couldn't understand every word, the crown's magic provided enough comprehension to follow the discussion. We've prepared your schedule, Ragnarok said, switching to English as he passed Harry a parchment. Your education must cover many areas if you're to fulfill your role effectively. Harry studied the schedule: morning studies, Goblin history and culture with Elder Irongrip, magical theory and practice with Battlemage Grimclaw, finance and estate management with Director Ragnarok, afternoon studies, wizarding history and society with Professor McGonagall, upon arrival, combat training with Warmaster Sharptooth, languages and diplomacy with Ambassador Silvertongue. This seems intense, Harry said diplomatically. Ragnarok's mouth twisted in what might have been a smile. You have much to learn in a short time. We've arranged for tutors in both goblin and wizarding subjects. Professor McGonagall is expected to arrive this afternoon to begin your wizarding education. Harry nodded, a mixture of excitement and apprehension building in his chest. When will I visit my vaults? The heritage test mentioned properties and heirlooms. After your morning lessons, Ragnarok replied. The Ravenclaw and Slytherin vaults haven't been accessed in centuries. There may be surprises waiting. Understatement, Slytherin's impression commented dryly. My chamber at Hogwarts isn't the only place I hid my treasures. Harry's lessons began immediately after breakfast. Elder Irongrip, a female goblin with silver hair pulled back in a severe braid, led him to a classroom-like chamber lined with maps, artifacts, and ancient texts. Goblin history doesn't begin where wizard histories claim, she said without preamble. We were practicing magic while humans still huddled in caves. The lesson was fascinating and intense. Harry learned that goblins had once controlled vast territories above ground before being driven into hiding by wizards. Their rebellion, or resistance campaigns, as Irongrip termed them, were responses to increasing restrictions on their rights and territories. The Ministry calls me the Goblin King, Harry said during a pause, but I've noticed the goblins themselves use different titles when speaking gobbledygook. Why? Irongrip looked pleased at the observation. Perceptive. King is the closest wizarding translation, but inaccurate. The goblin term, Grimclorath, means something closer to guardian of the nation's heart. It's not merely a ruler, but a magical nexus, one who embodies and protects our collective power. Fascinating linguistic distinction, Ravenclaw's impression noted. The translation reveals wizarding biases about governance. Harry's next lesson with Battlemage Grimclaw proved even more challenging. The ancient, battle-scarred goblin guided Harry to a warded chamber deep beneath the bank. Wizard children typically don't begin formal magic training until 11, Grimclaw growled. Wand-waving nonsense. Magic comes from within, not from bits of wood. He placed a simple river stone before Harry. Make it float. Harry stared at the stone. How? I don't have a wand. You don't need one, Grimclaw insisted. The bindings on your core are gone. Your magic is free. Feel it flowing through you, then direct it at the stone. Harry closed his eyes, trying to sense his magic. At first, there was nothing. Then, with the Founder Impression's guidance, he became aware of a warm current flowing beneath his skin, pulsing with his heartbeat. Don't force it, Ravenclaw advised. Imagine the stone's natural state is floating. Intent matters more than method, added Slytherin. Know that it will obey you. Harry opened his eyes, focused on the stone, and willed it to rise. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the stone trembled, rose unsteadily an inch above the table, hovered for 3 seconds, and dropped back with a clatter. Impressive for a first attempt, Grimclaw acknowledged. Again. By the end of the hour, Harry could levitate the stone steadily at eye level for nearly a minute. His head pounded with effort, but exhilaration outweighed the discomfort. He was doing magic, real magic, without a wand or incantations. Enough, Grimclaw declared finally. You have potential, but building magical stamina takes time. Will I learn goblin magic and wizard magic? Harry asked. Grimclaw's expression turned shrewd. The distinction is artificial, created by wizards to classify and control. Magic is magic. The methods differ, but the power is the same. You, uniquely positioned between our worlds, can draw from both traditions. The morning passed in a whirlwind of information. Director Ragnarok's financial lesson introduced Harry to the staggering wealth he'd inherited, not just gold, but properties, investments, and artifacts of immense historical and magical value. The pot of fortune alone would make you wealthy by wizarding standards, Ragnarok explained. Combined with the Ravenclaw and Slytherin inheritances, you're likely the wealthiest individual in magical Britain. What does that mean practically? Harry asked. The numbers Ragnarok showed him were just abstract figures. He had no context for understanding 1,000,000 galleons versus 1,000. It means freedom, Ragnarok said simply. Freedom to make choices without financial constraints. Freedom to challenge those in power without fear of economic reprisal. And responsibility to use that wealth wisely. After lunch, another blend of goblin and human cuisine, Ragnarok led Harry to the carts that would take them deep into the Gringotts vaults. The Slytherin and Ravenclaw vaults are among our oldest and deepest, Ragnarok explained as the cart plunged downward at breathtaking speed. Few have ever seen them, even among goblins. Harry gripped the sides of the cart, equal parts terrified and thrilled by the breakneck journey. They descended past the standard vaults, past high-security areas with dragons standing guard, deeper and deeper until the air grew cold and heavy with ancient magic. The cart finally stopped before a massive door of greenish-black metal, unmarked except for a small serpent carved at eye level. The Slytherin Vault, Ragnarok announced. It requires Parseltongue to open, the language of serpents. According to our records, all Slytherin's descendants possessed this ability. Speak to it, urged Slytherin's impression. Say, open, in my tongue. Harry focused on the carved snake, and suddenly, it no longer looked like a carving but a real serpent, coiled and waiting. Words formed in his mind, but not English words, something older, sibilant. Open, he hissed. The snake animated, slithering across the door's surface, tracing a pattern that glowed emerald green. With a grinding of ancient mechanisms, the vault door swung open. Remarkable, Ragnarok murmured. The chamber beyond was vast, far larger than seemed physically possible given the space available. The walls were lined with bookshelves holding ancient tomes, glass cases displaying artifacts, and chests overflowing with gold and jewels. In the center stood a pedestal bearing a single object, a locket of heavy gold with an ornate S inlaid in emeralds. Slytherin's locket, Harry whispered, the knowledge coming from the founder's impression. As he approached, the locket seemed to pulse with recognition. Harry reached out, and the moment his fingers touched the cool metal, a surge of magic flowed through him. The founder's impression in his mind grew sharper, more defined. My greatest working, Slytherin's voice was clearer now. Wear it, and more of my knowledge becomes yours. Harry slipped the chain over his head, letting the locket rest against his chest. Immediately, new understanding bloomed in his mind, secrets of Parseltongue, ritual magic, and forgotten potions. The locket contains more of Slytherin's memory and power, Harry explained to Ragnarok. Like the crown, but focused on his specific knowledge. Ragnarok looked thoughtful. The founders created these items as repositories of their wisdom, insurance that their knowledge wouldn't be lost. That you can access both Ravenclaw's and Slytherin's legacy suggests you truly are meant to unite what history divided. They spent an hour exploring the vault, with Harry selecting several books on parselmagic, a set of ceremonial daggers that resonated with his magic, and a small wooden box containing vials of silvery memory strands. Memories to be viewed in a pensieve, Ragnarok explained when Harry asked about them. Slytherin's personal recollections, perhaps. A rare treasure. Their next stop was even deeper, a bronze door etched with mathematical formulas and astronomical charts that seemed to shift and calculate continuously. Ravenclaw's vault, Ragnarok said. It requires solving a riddle, which changes for each visitor. As Harry approached, the formulas rearranged themselves, forming words: I am the beginning of eternity, the end of time and space, the beginning of every end, the end of every place. What am I? Harry frowned, considering. Think literally, came Ravenclaw's impression. Examine the words themselves. After a moment's reflection, Harry smiled. The letter E. It's the first letter in eternity, the last letter in time and space, the first letter of end, and the last letter of place. The door chimed melodiously, and the bronze surface rippled like water before parting down the middle. The vault beyond contrasted sharply with Slytherin's. Where the first had been grand and somewhat ominous, this space was airy and filled with natural light, though how sunlight reached this far underground was a mystery. The chamber resembled a vast library-laboratory hybrid, with towering bookshelves, astronomical instruments, experimental apparatus, and artifacts organized with meticulous precision. At the center, displayed on a reading stand, sat a delicate silver diadem inset with a brilliant blue sapphire. Ravenclaw's diadem, Harry breathed. The lost diadem of wisdom. Not lost, Ravenclaw's impression corrected. Protected. My daughter stole it, but what she took was a replica. The true diadem has waited here for the right heir. Harry approached reverently. Unlike the locket's pulse of power, the diadem emanated a gentle, clarifying energy. When he carefully lifted it, the sensation was like a cool breeze through his mind, sweeping away confusion and doubt. I shouldn't wear both at once, Harry realized intuitively. They're meant to be balanced, not competing. Wise observation, Ragnarok agreed. These are powerful magical artifacts, not mere jewelry. Harry carefully placed the diadem in an enchanted box Ragnarok provided. Like the Slytherin vault, they spent time exploring Ravenclaw's collection, gathering books on forgotten branches of magic, star charts that updated themselves, and a curious bronze device that Ravenclaw's impression identified as a thought crystallizer, a tool for making abstract ideas tangible. Back in the cart, ascending toward the upper levels, Harry reflected on the staggering inheritance he'd claimed. Not just wealth and artifacts, but knowledge lost for centuries. Director Ragnarok, he said suddenly, did my parents leave anything? Personal items, I mean. Ragnarok's expression softened slightly. Yes. The Potter family vault contains many such treasures. We shall visit it another day, when you're rested. Today has already been eventful. Upon their return to the upper levels, they found an unexpected visitor waiting in Harry's chambers, a tall, severe-looking witch in emerald robes, her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun beneath a pointed hat. She stood examining one of the goblin artifacts on display, her posture rigid with tension. Professor McGonagall, Ragnarok announced. May I present King Harry Potter Ravenclaw Slytherin? The witch turned, and her stern expression faltered. Merciful heavens, she whispered. Harry saw the moment her eyes registered everything, the crown upon his head, Slytherin's locket around his neck, the goblin-styled clothing, and most of all, his eyes, clear and bright without glasses, filled with a confidence no 5-year-old should possess. You look so like James, she said finally. But your eyes, my mother's eyes, Harry finished, having heard this already from Dumbledore. You knew my parents well. I taught them both, McGonagall replied, visibly gathering her composure. And I was fond of them. Very fond. Her Scottish accent grew more pronounced with emotion. Professor McGonagall has agreed to supervise your wizarding education, Ragnarok explained. With the understanding that you remain under Goblin authority. McGonagall's lips thinned at this reminder, but she nodded. Headmaster Dumbledore explained the unusual circumstances. Though I confess, his explanation hardly prepared me for. She gestured vaguely at Harry and their surroundings. Would you like tea, Professor? Harry offered, trying to ease the tension. And you can ask what you really want to know. A hint of a smile touched McGonagall's lips. Forthright, like your mother. She took a seat, accepting the tea a goblin attendant provided. Very well, Mr. Potter, just Harry is fine, he interrupted. Or King Harry in formal settings, I suppose, but that feels strange coming from my parents' friend. McGonagall nodded, studying him over her teacup. Albus told me you were named Goblin King through some ancient prophecy, that you're heir to both Slytherin and Ravenclaw, and that you refuse to return to your relatives. What he couldn't explain was how you seem older than your years. Harry touched the crown lightly. The founder impressions help. They're not ghosts exactly, but echoes of their knowledge and personality. They guide me. He decided to test her reaction. And Dumbledore didn't tell you about the soul fragment he left in my scar, or the bindings he placed on my magic. Tea sloshed as McGonagall's hand trembled. He most certainly did not, she said, her voice dangerously quiet. The goblin ritual removed both, Harry explained. The fragment was part of Voldemort, he noted. She flinched at the name, that attached to me the night he killed my parents. The bindings were limiting my magical development. McGonagall set down her cup with deliberate care. I told him, she said, almost to herself. I sat outside that house all day watching those terrible muggles, and I told Albus they were the worst sort. But he insisted the blood protection was paramount. Her eyes met Harry's. I should have checked on you. You couldn't have known, Harry said, though part of him agreed with her. But you're here now. And I need to learn about the world my parents came from. McGonagall straightened, professionalism reasserting itself. Indeed. We have 4 years before you begin Hogwarts, though I suspect you'll be far beyond first-year level by then. 6 years, Ragnarok corrected. King Harry will begin Hogwarts at 11, as is traditional. 6 years, then, McGonagall amended. She withdrew a shrunken trunk from her pocket and restored it to full size with a tap of her wand. I've brought a selection of textbooks, historical references, and some photographs of your parents I thought you might like to see. Harry's heart leapt. Photographs? Moving ones, like wizard photographs? McGonagall's expression softened. Yes. Including their wedding, and some from when you were a baby. For the next hour, Harry's education was temporarily forgotten as he pored over the magical photographs. His father, tall and laughing with untidy hair so like his own. His mother, beautiful with flowing red hair and the green eyes he'd inherited. Their wedding day, where they danced and smiled. And most precious of all, images of himself as a baby, held in their loving arms. They adored you, McGonagall said softly. Never doubt that. Thank you, Harry whispered, carefully setting aside the photo album. For bringing these. And for coming to teach me. McGonagall nodded briskly, though her eyes remained soft. Now then, shall we begin? I thought we might start with an overview of Wizarding Society, the Ministry, Hogwarts, and other key institutions you should know about. As the afternoon lesson progressed, Harry found Professor McGonagall to be a demanding but excellent teacher. She accepted no less than his best effort but explained concepts clearly and answered his questions honestly. Most refreshing was her willingness to acknowledge flaws in Wizarding Society. The Ministry's classification of beings is hopelessly prejudiced, she admitted when Harry questioned why goblins couldn't carry wands. Magical Britain can be, regrettably backward in its treatment of non-human magical peoples. That will change, Harry said with quiet determination. McGonagall regarded him thoughtfully. Yes, she said finally. I rather think it might. When their lesson concluded, McGonagall prepared to depart. I'll return tomorrow afternoon, she said. And if you have no objection, I thought I might bring Hagrid later this week. He was a friend of your parents too, and would dearly love to see you. I'd like that, Harry replied. But Professor? I'd rather you didn't report everything to Headmaster Dumbledore. Not yet. McGonagall's eyebrows rose. I see. May I ask why? I don't trust his intentions, Harry said honestly. He had his chance to look after me properly, and he chose not to. I need to understand more before I decide how to deal with him. After a moment's consideration, McGonagall nodded. Very well. My first loyalty is to my students, not the headmaster. I will tell him you are well and learning, but the details shall remain between us. Once McGonagall had departed, Harry's final lesson of the day began, combat training with War Master Sharptooth. To Harry's surprise, they began not with weapons but with meditation. A warrior who cannot control his mind cannot control his body, Sharptooth explained, guiding Harry through breathing exercises. Magic responds to emotion. In battle, unchecked emotion becomes weakness. By dinner, Harry was exhausted but exhilarated. His mind buzzed with new knowledge, and his magic hummed beneath his skin, more accessible than ever before. He retired early to his chambers, falling asleep almost instantly among the silk sheets. The crown returned to its pedestal beside Ravenclaw's diadem, Slytherin's locket still warm against his chest. Days became weeks, and weeks became months. Harry's education progressed at a pace that would have been impossible without the founder impressions guiding him. His magical capabilities grew exponentially as he learned to combine goblin techniques with wizarding theory. Sharpclaw, initially formal and distant, gradually became something like a friend. The young goblin warrior, only a few years older than Harry in goblin terms, was assigned to accompany him everywhere. You don't have to call me, my king, when we're alone, Harry told him one day, about 3 months into his new life. They were exploring one of the deeper Gringotts tunnels, areas rarely visited by any but the oldest goblins. Sharpclaw looked scandalized. It would be disrespectful. No more disrespectful than me calling you, my subject, all the time, Harry countered. Friends use names. Friends? Sharpclaw repeated, blinking his amber eyes. Unless you'd rather not be, Harry said quickly. A slow, unusual smile spread across Sharpclaw's face. No wizard has ever called a goblin friend before. Not truly. I'm not exactly a typical wizard, Harry pointed out, touching the crown he now wore most waking hours. No, Sharpclaw agreed. You are not. He seemed to wrestle with himself before adding, my given name, my true name, is Gornick. Harry's eyes widened. He'd learned that goblins kept their birth names private, using public names for interaction with wizards. I'm honored by your trust. Gornick. From that day forward, a genuine friendship formed between them. Gornick began teaching Harry goblin customs not covered in his formal lessons, secret handshakes, mining songs, even goblin games played with carved stones and precious metals. Harry's magical education advanced rapidly. By his 6th birthday, he could perform most first-year Hogwarts spells wandlessly. His skill with parcel magic, spells cast in Parseltongue, progressed even faster, as these connected directly to Slytherin's knowledge. Professor McGonagall visited 3 times weekly, bringing news of the wizarding world along with her lessons. Rubeus Hagrid, the gentle half-giant groundskeeper of Hogwarts, became another regular visitor, regaling Harry with stories of magical creatures and his parents' school adventures. "Yeah, should have seen your dad on a broomstick," Hagrid told him during one visit. "Natural flyer. Quidditch captain. And, your mum, brilliant with charms, she was. Kind to everyone, even old Hagrid. Through these stories, Harry built a mental image of his parents that went beyond photographs. James Potter, brave, sometimes arrogant, fiercely loyal to friends. Lily Evans Potter, brilliant, kind, but with a temper when roused to defend others. He treasured every anecdote, every remembered quirk and habit. 6 months into Harry's reign, the first serious challenge to his position arose. Minister for Magic Cornelius Fudge requested a meeting with the Potter boy to resolve the unusual situation. He can request all he likes, Ragnarok growled during their morning council. He has no authority here. But refusing would create unnecessary conflict, Harry pointed out. At nearly 6 years old, he'd grown more comfortable with strategy and diplomacy. Let him come. Let him see that I'm not being coerced or manipulated. It's not that simple, Ambassador Silvertongue countered. The ministry refuses to recognize Goblin sovereignty. They view our nation as a department under their control. Then perhaps it's time they learned otherwise, Harry said firmly. Arrange the meeting. 2 days later, Minister Fudge arrived at Gringotts accompanied by a squat, toad-like woman with a saccharine smile and a tall black man with a gold earring whom McGonagall had identified as Kingsley Shacklebolt, a respected Auror. Harry received them in the formal audience chamber, seated on a modest throne with his council arranged around him, Ragnarok, Silvertongue, Grimclaw, and to the surprise of the wizarding delegation, Professor McGonagall. Minister Fudge, Harry greeted formally, the crown gleaming on his head, Slytherin's locket visible against his formal robes. Welcome to Gringotts. Fudge, a portly man in a pinstriped suit with a lime green bowler hat clutched in his hands, looked thoroughly uncomfortable. Yes, well, quite an unusual situation we have here, eh? The boy who lived becoming some sort of goblin leader. Not some sort of leader, Ragnarok corrected coldly. King Harry is the goblin friend prophesied in our oldest texts, recognized by blood and magic as ruler of the Goblin Nation. Yes, yes, Fudge blustered. But surely you see he's just a child. Barely 6 years old. He belongs in a proper wizarding home with proper guardians. I was in a proper home before, Harry replied, his voice unnaturally steady for a child his age. My Muggle relatives kept me in a cupboard, Minister Fudge. They told me my parents died in a car crash. They punished me for accidental magic. Fudge shifted uncomfortably. Well, perhaps those particular Muggles were unsuitable, but there are many wizarding families who would be honored to raise you. The Malfoys, for instance. Lucius Malfoy was a Death Eater, Harry interrupted. The toad-like woman gasped at his bluntness. Even if he truly was under the Imperius curse as he claimed, I doubt he'd welcome Lily Potter's son into his home. How dare, the woman began, but Harry continued. I am not a prize to be claimed, Minister. My guardianship was determined by magic older than the ministry itself. The Goblin Nation has provided me education, protection, and respect. What exactly are you offering that would improve my situation? Fudge sputtered, clearly unprepared for a child who could articulate his position so clearly. Perhaps I can clarify the ministry's concerns. Kingsley Shacklebolt spoke for the first time, his deep voice measured and reasonable. It's not just about guardianship, but about your future role in wizarding society. As the boy who lived, you represent hope to many. Your apparent alignment with non-human interests creates political complications. I see, Harry said, appreciating the Auror's honesty. So the ministry is concerned about optics, not my welfare. That's not, Fudge began. Tell me, Minister, Harry cut across him, if I were living with a wizarding family, say, the Malfoys as you suggested, would you be holding this meeting? Would you question their guardianship? Well, no, but, then the issue isn't my age or welfare, but your discomfort with goblin authority, Harry concluded. Which is precisely why the prophecy matters. The division between magical peoples weakens us all. The Toad Woman could contain herself no longer. Hem. If I might speak. Without waiting for permission, she continued in a girlish voice that set Harry's teeth on edge. I am Dolores Umbridge, Senior Undersecretary to the Minister. While your situation is unusual, Ministry law is quite clear. Magical children must be under wizarding guardianship until majority. Goblins, as magical creatures rather than beings, cannot. Enough, Harry said, and to everyone's surprise, including his own, his voice carried a subtle magical weight that silenced Umbridge mid-sentence. Slytherin's locket warmed against his chest, his first manifestation of command magic. Into the startled silence, Harry continued more calmly. Madam Umbridge, I suggest you study history more carefully. The classification of goblins as creatures is a recent ministry invention, not a magical reality. Furthermore, the Treaty of 1612 explicitly acknowledges goblin sovereignty in their territories, including Gringotts. Umbridge's face mottled with rage, but when she tried to speak, no sound emerged. King Harry, Shacklebolt intervened smoothly, perhaps we could reach a compromise. Regular visits from ministry representatives to ensure your education meets wizarding standards, in exchange for recognition of your unique status. Harry glanced at Ragnarok, who gave a subtle nod. A reasonable proposal, Auror Shacklebolt, with one amendment. The visits will be conducted by yourself or others mutually agreed upon. Madam Umbridge will not be welcome in Gringotts again. Fudge looked as though he might protest, but Shacklebolt spoke first. Agreed. I would be honored to serve as liaison. Then we are concluded, Harry said. Unless there's something else, Minister. Fudge gathered what dignity he could muster. This isn't over, boy. The Wizengamot may have something to say about a national icon being raised by creatures. I look forward to addressing the Wizengamot when appropriate, Harry replied coolly. As heir to the houses of Potter, Slytherin, and Ravenclaw, I believe I'll have 3 votes when I come of age. Good day, Minister. After the ministry delegation departed, Umbridge still unable to speak despite Fudge's blustering demands that Harry undo whatever he'd done, McGonagall remained behind. That was remarkably handled, she said, a hint of pride in her voice. Though perhaps antagonizing Umbridge was unwise. She's vindictive and has the minister's ear. She called sentient beings, creatures, to their faces in their own territory, Harry replied. What would you have had me do? McGonagall's lips quirked. Oh, I'm not saying she didn't deserve it. Just that political battles require choosing one's moments carefully. The silencing was unintentional, Harry admitted. I'm still learning to control certain abilities. Command magic, Ragnarok identified. A rare talent, typically associated with Slytherin's line. Your emotions triggered it, but with training, you'll master it. Another item for my already full schedule? Harry asked with a wry smile. The crown grows heavier, Ragnarok acknowledged. But you bear it well. As his 6th birthday approached, Harry made a decision that surprised his council. During their morning meeting, he announced, I want to form a personal guard that includes wizards and other magical beings, not just goblins. Ambassador Silvertongue frowned. The king's protection has always been the sole province of goblin warriors. Which made sense when goblin kings were solely concerned with goblin affairs, Harry countered. But my role is different. I need advisors and protectors who understand all magical communities. Ragnarok stroked his pointed beard thoughtfully. Who would you include? Remus Lupin, for one, Harry said. Professor McGonagall had told him about his parents' friend, a werewolf who had been unable to seek custody of Harry due to ministry restrictions. His condition gives him insight into the prejudice many magical beings face. A werewolf in the King's Guard. Elder Irongrip looked scandalized. Unprecedented. So is a human goblin king, Harry pointed out. And I'd like to offer a position to Bill Weasley. This caused even more consternation. The eldest Weasley's son had recently begun working as a cursebreaker for Gringotts, showing unusual respect for goblin customs. You aim to create not just a guard, but a council representing multiple magical communities, Ragnarok realized. A bold move. The prophecy speaks of a bridge builder, Harry reminded them. I can't build bridges by staying solely within Goblin territory. After considerable debate, the council agreed to Harry's proposal. Letters were dispatched to Remus Lupin and Bill Weasley, inviting them to meet with the Goblin King on a matter of importance. Remus Lupin arrived first, a shabby, prematurely aged man with scars crossing his face and a wary, hunted look in his amber eyes. When he was shown into Harry's study, he stopped dead, staring at Harry as though seeing a ghost. "James," he whispered, before shaking himself. "No, of course not. Harry. You look so like your father, but your eyes." "My mother's eyes," Harry finished with a small smile. "Please, sit down, Mr. Lupin. Thank you for coming." Lupin sank into a chair, still staring. "When I received a summons from the Goblin King, I never imagined. McGonagall mentioned you were here, but she couldn't explain. How is this possible?" Harry explained briefly about the heritage test, the prophecy, and his position. Lupin listened with increasing amazement. Lily's bloodline contained Ravenclaw and Slytherin ancestry, he repeated. James would have found that hilarious. He was always teasing Sirius about being related to Slytherins, and all the while, he'd married into the line himself. Sirius? Sirius Black? Harry asked sharply. The name had appeared on his heritage test as his godfather, but no one spoke of him. Lupin's face darkened. Yes. He was your father's best friend. Or so we all believed. What happened to him? Harry pressed. Lupin looked uncomfortable. He betrayed your parents, Harry. He was their secret keeper, the only one who could reveal their location to Voldemort. After they died, he killed another friend of ours, Peter Pettigrew, along with 12 Muggles. He's in Azkaban now, wizard prison. Harry frowned. Something about the story felt wrong, but he couldn't pinpoint why. Perhaps it was Slytherin's impression, ever suspicious of accepted narratives. I'd like to look into that more, he said. But first, the reason I asked you here. I'm forming a council of advisors from various magical communities. I'd like you to represent werewolves and other beings affected by ministry classification laws. Lupin gaped at him. Me? But my condition. I couldn't possibly, that's exactly why it should be you, Harry interrupted. You've experienced the prejudice firsthand. You're educated, articulate, and you knew my parents. I need people I can trust, Mr. Lupin. Remus, please, Lupin said automatically. Harry, I don't know what to say. The ministry would never recognize, I'm not asking for their permission, Harry said with a touch of steel in his voice. The Goblin Nation doesn't answer to the ministry, and neither do I. A slow smile spread across Lupin's face, the first genuine one Harry had seen. You may look like James, but that was pure Lily just now. She never asked permission either. He took a deep breath. I accept, on one condition. Which is? That you call me Moony. It's what your dad and, the others, used to call me. Harry smiled. Welcome to my council, Moony. Bill Weasley proved an easier recruitment. The tall, red-haired cursebreaker had already impressed the goblins with his respectful approach and quick learning. He accepted Harry's offer without hesitation. Mom will go mental when she hears I'm advising the boy who lived, he said with a grin. She's been going on about you for years, all of us kids grew up on stories about how you defeated you-know-who. Harry grimaced. I wish people wouldn't. I was a baby. I didn't do anything special. Except survive the killing curse, end a war, and become Goblin King before your 6th birthday, Bill pointed out dryly. Nothing special at all. Harry's council expanded further in the coming months. Augusta Longbottom, formidable matriarch of an old pureblood family, agreed to represent traditional wizarding interests. Her grandson Neville had also lost his parents to Voldemort's followers. Andromeda Tonks, a healer with connections to both pureblood society and muggleborns through her disowned status and marriage, joined as a moderate voice. Most controversially, Harry extended an invitation to Filius Flitwick, Hogwarts charms professor and part goblin. This created a direct connection to Hogwarts outside of Dumbledore's control, which was precisely Harry's intention. "The headmaster won't be pleased," Flitwick squeaked during his first council meeting. "He still believes you should be under his guidance, preparing for your eventual confrontation with you-know-who." "Voldemort," Harry corrected, noting the various flinches around the table. "Fear of a name only increases fear of the thing itself." "Well said," Remus murmured. "As for Dumbledore," Harry continued, "he'll adapt to the new reality. I respect his power and experience, but I don't trust his methods." Through his expanding council, Harry gained insight into the broader magical world he couldn't access directly while living beneath Gringotts. Bill brought news from his large, connected family. Augusta shared Wizengamot gossip. Andromeda reported on public sentiment among different wizarding factions. Flitwick kept him informed of Hogwarts matters. It was Flitwick who brought news of Dumbledore's most direct attempt to reassert control over Harry. "He's petitioning the Wizengamot," the diminutive professor reported during a council meeting. "Arguing that regardless of goblin prophecies, you're still a magical child subject to wizarding guardianship laws." "On what grounds?" Andromeda asked sharply. "Goblin territory has always been recognized as sovereign. He's using the precedent of the 1782 Magical Child Protection Act," Flitwick explained. "It was originally passed to prevent magical children from being kept by magical creatures for nefarious purposes, like fairies stealing children." Harry's expression darkened. "Equating my situation to a kidnapping? That's low, even for him." "It's clever politics," Augusta admitted grudgingly. "Many in the Wizengamot still view goblins as dangerous and untrustworthy. They'll respond to fears of the boy who lived being raised to resent wizard kind. Then I'll have to show them otherwise," Harry decided. "It's time for my first public appearance." His council erupted in protests, citing security concerns and Harry's young age. But Harry had made up his mind. "If I remain hidden away, Dumbledore's narrative goes unchallenged. I need to be seen, not as a prisoner or a weapon, but as a bridge builder. The summer solstice celebration is in 2 weeks. I'll attend." The summer solstice was a significant event in the wizarding calendar. Held on the grounds of a different ancient magical site each year, it brought together wizard families from across Britain for a day of celebration, commerce, and socializing. "This year it's at Stonehenge," Bill informed them. "Security will be tight because of the Muggles, but that works in our favor." Preparations consumed the following weeks. Security arrangements were negotiated with the Ministry, a delicate balance between ensuring Harry's safety and not appearing paranoid. Harry's public wardrobe was debated extensively. Traditional wizarding robes seemed appropriate, but his council wanted visual acknowledgement of his goblin status. The solution came from an unexpected source. Madame Malkin, the wizarding clothier, was invited to Gringotts to design a unique outfit that blended elements of both cultures. The result was elegant formal robes in deep green with silver and bronze accents, subtly incorporating goblin symbols alongside wizarding ones. "You'll wear the crown, of course," Ragnarok stated rather than asked. Harry nodded. "And Slytherin's locket. People should see who and what I am, no pretense, no hiding." On the morning of the solstice, Harry stood before a mirror in his chambers, barely recognizing himself. At nearly 6 years old, he had grown from the malnourished child who arrived at Gringotts. Regular meals, exercise, and magical healing had transformed him into a healthy, if still small, boy. His unruly black hair remained untamable, but now framed a face that looked alert and confident rather than fearful. The lightning scar on his forehead had faded to a thin silver line, barely noticeable unless one knew to look for it. His eyes, once hidden behind taped glasses, now shone clear and green, sometimes shifting to reflect the knowledge of the founder impressions within his mind. "Ready, my king." Gornik asked from the doorway. The young goblin had been named captain of Harry's personal guard, a position of immense honor. As I'll ever be, Harry replied, settling the crown on his head. The familiar weight was reassuring, the founder impression stirring to alertness. They will stare and whisper, Ravenclaw warned. Humans fear what they don't understand. Let them fear a little, Slytherin countered. Respect often begins with awe. The journey to Stonehenge was accomplished via a special portkey created for the occasion. Harry arrived with his entourage, a mix of goblin guards in ceremonial armor, his wizard council members, and representatives from the Centaur and Merepeople communities who had recently joined his cause. Their appearance at the edge of the celebration caused an immediate stir. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Heads turned. Whispers erupted like hissing flames. Is that Harry Potter? The crown, is it true then? Look at the goblins with him. Harry walked forward with measured steps, neither rushing nor dawdling. Gornik and Remus flanked him, with the rest of his entourage following in a carefully choreographed formation. The crowd parted before them, many wizards and witches bowing instinctively before realizing what they were doing. Harry acknowledged them with nods, occasionally stopping to speak briefly with children who stared at him with wide-eyed wonder. Minister Fudge hurried to intercept them, his face a complicated mix of political calculation and genuine surprise. Mr. Potter. We weren't expecting, that is to say, we're delighted you could join the celebration. Thank you, Minister, Harry replied politely. I thought it was time to introduce myself properly to the wizarding community. Yes, of course, Fudge blustered. Allow me to escort you to the VIP area. Many people will want to meet you. As they walked through the crowd, Harry became aware of a tall figure in purple robes watching from a distance. Albus Dumbledore had not approached, but his piercing blue eyes followed Harry's every move. He's evaluating, Slytherin noted. Recalculating his plans. He'll make his move soon, Ravenclaw agreed. Be prepared. The VIP area turned out to be a large tent where influential wizarding families mingled. Harry recognized several names from his political lessons: Malfoy, Nott, Greengrass, Bones, Abbott, and others. All conversation stopped when he entered with his unusual entourage. Ladies and gentlemen, Fudge announced with forced joviality, may I present Harry Potter, the, Goblin King. Harry surveyed the gathered dignitaries. Thank you for the welcome, Minister. I'm pleased to finally meet members of the wizarding community I've heard so much about. A tall, aristocratic blond man stepped forward, his cold gray eyes assessing Harry with undisguised interest. Lucius Malfoy, Mr. Potter. We meet at last. He extended a hand sheathed in a black leather glove. Harry took it briefly, aware of the tension radiating from his goblin guards. Mr. Malfoy. I understand you've been interested in my guardianship arrangements. Malfoy's smile didn't reach his eyes. Merely concerned for the welfare of our young savior. The wizarding world has a vested interest in your upbringing. I assure you, I'm receiving an excellent education in magic, politics, and history, Harry replied. Including recent history. The implied reference to Malfoy's Death Eater past wasn't lost on anyone. A flicker of something, anger. Respect, passed across Malfoy's face before his mask of polite interest returned. Excellent. Perhaps when you're older, my son Draco could show you the proper wizarding circles. Some associations are more beneficial than others. His gaze flicked dismissively toward the goblins and Remus. I'll keep that in mind, Harry said neutrally. Though I find diversity of perspective invaluable. Before Malfoy could respond, an imposing witch in a monocle approached. Amelia Bones, Director of Magical Law Enforcement, she introduced herself. A pleasure to meet you, Mr. Potter. Your appearance today has caused quite a stir. I imagine it has, Harry acknowledged. But hiding away only fuels speculation and fear. I'd rather people see the reality. "And what reality is that?" asked a new voice. Albus Dumbledore had finally approached, his blue eyes twinkling though his expression remained serious. The atmosphere in the tent charged instantly. Fudge looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. The goblin guards tensed, hands moving subtly toward concealed weapons. "Headmaster," Harry greeted calmly. "I was wondering when you'd join us." "Curiosity eventually overcomes even the most patient man," Dumbledore replied. "I find myself most curious about your sudden public appearance, just days before the Wisengamot was to hear my petition regarding your guardianship." "Timing is everything in politics," Harry said with a small smile. "As I believe you're well aware." Several onlookers tittered nervously at the child's precocious response. Dumbledore's eyes narrowed slightly, though his genial expression never faltered. "Indeed. Though I wonder if a child of 5, nearly 6, I believe, should be concerning himself with political maneuvering at all." "I wouldn't have to if my original guardianship had been properly arranged," Harry countered. "But here we are." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Few knew the details of Harry's placement with the Dursleys, and fewer still would have questioned Dumbledore's decisions. "Perhaps we could discuss this privately," Dumbledore suggested, a hint of steel beneath the grandfatherly tone. "I have nothing to hide from these people," Harry replied. "They should know that the goblins found me malnourished and abused in the home where you placed me. They should know that you bound my magic and left a fragment of Voldemort's soul," gasps echoed through the tent, "in my scar. They should know that the guidance you planned for me involved keeping me ignorant of my heritage until you decided I was ready." The temperature in the tent seemed to drop several degrees. Dumbledore's customary twinkle had vanished entirely, replaced by a calculating gaze that measured Harry as one might a particularly dangerous opponent. "You speak of matters you cannot fully understand," Dumbledore said quietly. "The decisions I made were for the greater good." "The greater good?" Harry interrupted, Slytherin's locket warming against his chest. "Or your vision of it? You decided my life was an acceptable sacrifice on your altar of the greater good." Magic crackled in the air between them, not spells, but the raw energy of two powerful magical cores responding to emotion. Ragnarok stepped forward, placing a restraining hand on Harry's arm. "This is neither the time nor place for this discussion," the Goblin director said firmly. King Harry came to introduce himself to Wizarding Society, not to debate past decisions. "Quite right," Fudge jumped in, clearly desperate to defuse the tension. "It's a celebration. Perhaps young Mr. Potter would like to see the solstice ritual preparations." "I would," Harry agreed, deliberately relaxing his posture. The magic in the air dissipated. "Headmaster, we will continue this discussion another time. In the proper forum." Dumbledore inclined his head slightly. "As you wish. Though I maintain that my concern is, and has always been, for your well-being and preparation for what lies ahead." "Then we share a goal, if not the methods," Harry conceded. "Good day, Headmaster." As Harry moved away with Fudge and his entourage, he heard Augusta Longbottom's carrying voice, "Well. I haven't seen Albus set down so neatly since the International Confederation debate of '78. The rest of Harry's appearance passed without major incident. He was introduced to dozens of important wizarding figures, posed for photographs with ministry officials, and even participated in the ceremonial lighting of the solstice fires. Throughout it all, he maintained a careful balance, respectful of wizarding traditions while never hiding his connection to the Goblin Nation. By the time they returned to Gringotts that evening, Harry was exhausted but satisfied. He had achieved his goal, forcing Dumbledore to withdraw his petition while introducing himself to Wizarding Britain on his own terms. "You performed admirably," Ragnarok told him as they debriefed in Harry's chambers. "The Prophet will undoubtedly run a front-page story tomorrow." "Let them," Harry said, carefully removing the crown. "Better they write about what they actually saw than what they imagine." Remus, who had remained quiet through much of the day, finally spoke up. "You were magnificent, Harry. Your parents would be so proud." His voice broke slightly on the last words. Harry looked up at the werewolf, suddenly feeling very much like the child he actually was. Do you really think so? I know so, Remus said firmly. Lily would have cheered your stand against Dumbledore. And James. He smiled sadly. James would have been strutting around telling everyone, that's my son, the Goblin King. Harry's throat tightened. For all his political accomplishments and growing magical power, moments like these reminded him of what he'd truly lost, parents who would have loved him unconditionally, regardless of prophecies or titles. Thank you, Moony, he whispered. For being here. For telling me about them. Remus crossed the room and, after a moment's hesitation, pulled Harry into a hug. Always, cub. Always. The confrontation with Dumbledore at the solstice celebration marked a turning point in Harry's public status. The Daily Prophet's front-page coverage, Boy Who Live Now Goblin King, Potter Heir emerges with startling claims, sparked weeks of debate throughout Wizarding Britain. Harry's counsel worked to shape the narrative, with Augusta and Andromeda giving strategic interviews emphasizing Harry's proper wizarding education and the ancient magical basis for his goblin kingship. Bill Weasley's family became unexpected allies, with Arthur Weasley publicly supporting Harry's unique status as exactly the kind of interspecies cooperation the Ministry should encourage. Not all reactions were positive. Several pureblood families expressed outrage at the boy who lived being held hostage by creatures. Dolores Umbridge penned a scathing editorial suggesting Harry had been enchanted or was being impersonated. The Department for Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures began drafting new regulations aimed at limiting goblin autonomy. Harry monitored these developments through his counsel, continuing his intensive education within Gringotts. His magical abilities grew at an astonishing rate. By his 7th birthday, he could perform wandlessly most spells taught through 5th year at Hogwarts, though complex transfiguration and charm work still challenged him. His skill with parcel magic, however, outstripped even Slytherin's expectations. The founder impression often expressed surprise at how quickly Harry adapted ancient serpent-based spells for modern applications. You create where I merely preserved, the impression commented after Harry successfully merged a Parseltongue healing spell with goblin metalworking techniques to create a self-repairing ceremonial dagger. The removal of Dumbledore's bindings had unleashed potential beyond what anyone anticipated. Harry's magic responded intuitively to his needs, sometimes manifesting abilities before he formally learned them. On his 7th birthday, Harry received an unexpected letter delivered by a magnificent snowy owl. The envelope bore the Hogwarts crest, but the handwriting wasn't Dumbledore's. It's from Professor McGonagall, Harry told his breakfast companions, Ragnock, Gornick, and Remus. A formal invitation to visit Hogwarts before term begins. Ragnock frowned. Dumbledore's latest strategy? Using McGonagall to lure you onto his territory? Possibly, Harry acknowledged. But Minerva has proven trustworthy so far. And I do want to see Hogwarts. My chamber remains hidden there, Slytherin's impression reminded him. And Ravenclaw's lost artifacts. I'll go, Harry decided. But with proper security, and on my terms. The arrangements took weeks to negotiate. Dumbledore insisted on certain restrictions, limiting Harry's goblin guard to 6 warriors, prohibiting access to certain areas of the castle, and requiring Harry to stay no more than 3 days. Harry countered with his own demands, unrestricted access to the Hogwarts library, private meetings with all 4 heads of house, and permission to bring his own food and drink. In late August, just before the start of term, Harry made his first journey to Hogwarts. Their party traveled by a special train, not the regular Hogwarts Express, but a smaller, more elegant affair arranged through goblin connections with the Magical Transportation Department. Harry stood at the window as they approached, getting his first glimpse of the castle rising majestically above the lake. Even from a distance, he could feel the ancient magic calling to him, particularly the sections built by Slytherin and Ravenclaw. Their impressions stirred excitedly in his mind, memories of the castle's construction flowing into his consciousness. It's beautiful, he murmured. Your future school, Remus said, standing beside him. Though I imagine you'll experience it quite differently from most first years when the time comes. Harry nodded absently, his attention caught by a flicker of movement at the edge of the forest. A centaur stood watching the train, bow in hand. They know we're coming, he said. The forest dwellers. The welcoming committee waiting at Hogsmeade Station was small but significant. Dumbledore himself, looking resplendent in midnight blue robes scattered with silver stars, McGonagall, her expression a careful neutral, Hagrid, beaming openly, and Professor Flitwick, who managed to look both formal in his role as Hogwarts staff and respectful as a member of Harry's council. Welcome to Hogwarts, Harry, Dumbledore greeted, pointedly omitting any royal title. I trust your journey was comfortable. Quite comfortable, thank you, Headmaster, Harry replied politely. It's good to finally see the school my parents attended. They traveled to the castle in thestral-drawn carriages, though Harry was among the few who could see the skeletal horses, having witnessed death through Slytherin's preserved memories. The founder impressions grew increasingly active as they approached, feeding Harry information about secret passages, hidden rooms, and the original layout of the castle before centuries of renovations. Entering the Great Hall for the first time was an overwhelming experience. The enchanted ceiling reflected a perfect summer sky, dotted with fluffy white clouds. The 4 house tables stretched the length of the hall, empty now but ready for the students' imminent return. The sorting hat is kept in my office, Dumbledore mentioned casually as they toured. A fascinating artifact created by Godric Gryffindor himself. It contains impressions of all 4 founders' personalities to help determine where each student belongs. Harry's eyes met the headmaster's. Rather like my crown, then, he said, touching the circlet he wore. Though mine contains only 2 founders' impressions. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose slightly. Indeed. I wasn't aware the crown functioned that way. Most interesting. Their tour continued through the castle's main areas, the classrooms, the hospital wing, the library. Throughout, Harry could feel Dumbledore watching him, evaluating his reactions, measuring his knowledge and power. During a private tea with Professor McGonagall later that afternoon, Harry asked about the headmaster's strategy. He's reassessing, McGonagall confirmed. Your performance at the solstice forced him to recognize you're not the malleable child he expected. Now he's trying to determine if you're an ally or an obstacle to his plans for defeating you-know-who. And what do you think, Professor? Harry asked. Am I ally or obstacle? McGonagall studied him over her spectacles. Neither, I hope. You're a child with extraordinary responsibilities thrust upon you. My concern is that you have the chance to grow into them naturally, not shaped by Albus's plans or the Ministry's fears or even goblin prophecies. Harry smiled, genuinely touched. Thank you, Professor. For seeing me as just Harry sometimes. That evening, while his goblin guards thought him asleep in the guest quarters, Harry slipped away under a disillusionment charm, one of the more complex spells he'd mastered. With Slytherin's guidance, he made his way to the second-floor girls' bathroom. The entrance has remained unchanged, Slytherin's impression assured him. Though I sense additional wards Dumbledore has placed, likely after the last time the chamber was opened. When was that? Harry whispered. 50 years ago, according to memories that have reached this impression. A boy claiming my bloodline, though the connection feels wrong somehow. Harry approached the sink with the snake carving, now clearly visible to his Parselmouth eyes. Open, he hissed softly. The sink moved aside, revealing the entrance to the Chamber of Secrets. Harry paused at the edge, listening. From deep below came a stirring, something ancient and massive shifting in its sleep. The basilisk, Slytherin confirmed. My sentinel. It will recognize you as my heir, but approach cautiously. Harry decided against entering that night. Confronting a basilisk, even one likely to obey him, seemed unwise without preparations. Instead, he carefully closed the entrance and continued his exploration. Ravenclaw's impression guided him to the room of requirement on the 7th floor, a space unknown even to Dumbledore. Walking past the blank wall 3 times while thinking of what he needed, Harry was rewarded with a door appearing from nowhere. Inside, he found a vast repository of hidden things, centuries of lost, concealed, or forgotten objects piled in towering stacks. Ravenclaw's impression directed him unerringly toward a tarnished tiara perched on a marble bust. The false diadem, she identified. The one my daughter stole. But it has been corrupted. There's dark magic within it, similar to what was in your scar. Harry stopped abruptly. Another soul fragment? From Voldemort? Yes. He desecrated my artifact to house a piece of his shattered soul. Harry retreated without touching the diadem. This discovery would require careful planning. If Voldemort had hidden a soul fragment in Ravenclaw's diadem, there might be others concealed elsewhere, perhaps even in Slytherin artifacts. The following morning, Harry met privately with Professor Flitwick to discuss his discovery, sworn to secrecy as a member of Harry's council rather than as Hogwarts staff. A Horcrux, Flitwick whispered, horrified. You're certain? The Founder impressions recognized the magical signature, Harry confirmed. It's like what was in my scar. This explains how Voldemort, survived that night, Flitwick said. His body was destroyed, but his soul remained tethered to this plane. The tiny professor's expression grew grim. Finding and destroying these objects must become a priority. Agreed. But carefully, and without alerting Dumbledore yet, Harry cautioned. I want to understand the full scope before bringing him in. Harry's final day at Hogwarts included a meeting with all 4 heads of house. Professor Snape, Slytherin's head, had been conspicuously absent until now. When he finally appeared, his sallow face was set in a mask of careful neutrality. Mr. Potter, he greeted with a slight emphasis on the ordinary title. Our celebrity Goblin King. Harry had been prepared for Snape's hostility. McGonagall had explained the complex history, Snape's friendship with Harry's mother, his rivalry with James Potter, his role as a spy during the war. What she couldn't explain was whether Snape's ultimate loyalty lay with Dumbledore or with his own ambitions. Professor Snape, Harry replied evenly. I understand you were friends with my mother. Snape's black eyes flashed with surprise before his mask reasserted itself. Lily Evans was a talented witch. I'd appreciate hearing about her sometime, Harry said. Most people only tell me about my father. Something unidentifiable flickered across Snape's face. Perhaps. If time permits. The meeting proceeded more smoothly after that, focusing on Harry's eventual attendance at Hogwarts. All 4 heads expressed concern about how Harry's unusual status would affect house dynamics and student interactions. The other children will either fear you, worship you, or resent you, Professor Sprout pointed out bluntly. None of which creates a healthy learning environment. I'm aware, Harry acknowledged. That's why I'm visiting now, years before I attend, to begin normalizing my position and preparing the school for my arrival. Most 11-year-olds don't need advance publicity, Snape commented dryly. Most 11-year-olds aren't the boy who lived in Goblin King, Harry countered. Pretending I'm just another student would be disingenuous. Before departing, Harry had one final meeting with Dumbledore in the headmaster's office. The circular room with its whirring silver instruments and portraits of former headmasters seemed designed to intimidate visitors with its concentrated magical ambience. I trust your visit has been informative, Dumbledore said, offering a lemon drop which Harry politely declined. Have you found what you were looking for? In some ways, Harry replied carefully. Hogwarts is extraordinary. I look forward to studying here properly when I'm 11. On your own terms, I imagine, Dumbledore said with a small smile. You've made that preference quite clear. We both want the same thing, Headmaster, Voldemort's final defeat and a safer wizarding world, Harry said. Where we differ is on the methods and who makes the decisions. Dumbledore leaned forward, his blue eyes intent. You are extraordinarily precocious, Harry. The founder impressions have accelerated your development remarkably. But there are aspects of this situation, prophecies, histories, connections, that even they cannot know. Then share them with me, Harry challenged. As an ally, not a pawn. You are never a pawn in my considerations, Dumbledore insisted. But some knowledge is dangerous when given too soon. That's not your decision anymore, Harry said firmly. It never should have been. My life, my destiny, my choice. They parted with the fundamental disagreement unresolved. As Harry's train pulled away from Hogsmeade Station, he gazed back at the castle silhouetted against the summer sky. Will it work? Remus asked quietly from beside him. This balancing act between Goblin King and Hogwarts student. It has to, Harry replied. The prophecies, both of them, converge at Hogwarts. That's where I'll face Voldemort eventually. That's where I'll either build the bridge between worlds or watch them fall further apart. When they returned to Gringotts, Harry called an immediate council meeting to discuss his discovery of the Horcrux at Hogwarts. The implications were serious. If Voldemort had created multiple soul anchors, defeating him would be far more complex than anyone had imagined. We need to hunt them down systematically, Bill Weasley said. As a cursebreaker, I might be able to help identify and neutralize them. And we need to research how many he might have created, Andromeda added. There must be literature on the subject, however dark. The Department of Mysteries would have such information, Augusta Longbottom mused. I might be able to arrange access through my Wisengamot connections. Harry listened to his council debate strategies, a plan forming in his mind. We'll pursue all these avenues, he decided finally. But quietly. If Voldemort's followers learn we're hunting Horcruxes, they might move or better protect the ones we haven't found yet. What about Dumbledore? Remus asked. He likely suspects, if he doesn't already know. We watch him, Harry said. See if he's already searching. If he is, we decide then whether to coordinate or compete. As the meeting concluded, Ragnarok remained behind with Harry. The Goblin director had been unusually quiet throughout the discussion. You've changed since your coronation, Ragnarok observed. Grown in ways beyond physical maturity. Harry nodded, unconsciously touching the crown that now felt like a part of him. The responsibility changes you. Knowing what's at stake. The crown's weight, Ragnarok agreed. You bear it well. I have good advisors, Harry said with a small smile. And I'm learning. Ragnarok's expression grew serious. The years ahead will test you further. When you return to the wizarding world more permanently, when you attend Hogwarts, you'll face challenges we cannot fully prepare you for. I know, Harry acknowledged. But that's true for every child leaving home, isn't it? Just on a different scale. Ragnarok studied him for a long moment. Sometimes I forget how young you truly are, he said finally. And sometimes, like now, I'm reminded that wisdom doesn't always require years. As his 7th birthday faded into memory and his 8th approached, Harry continued his intensive education, now focused on the dual challenges ahead, attending Hogwarts as both student and Goblin King, and hunting the scattered fragments of Voldemort's soul. The crown's weight grew heavier with each new responsibility, each new discovery. But Harry's shoulders grew stronger too, readying himself for the burdens only he could bear. In the darkness beneath London, the boy who lived and became king prepared for a future where worlds would either bridge or break upon his decisions. And deep in the castle to the north, an old wizard contemplated a chess board where the pieces had suddenly, irrevocably, rearranged themselves. Chapter 3, The Bridge Between Worlds. The soft glow of enchanted crystals illuminated the ancient tome spread before Harry. At 8 years old, he sat cross-legged on the floor of his private library deep within Gringotts, surrounded by scrolls, artifacts, and maps. Slytherin's locket gleamed against his chest while Ravenclaw's diadem rested on a velvet cushion nearby. There, Harry murmured, his finger tracing a faded diagram. That's the 5th one. Gornick leaned closer, amber eyes narrowed. You're certain? As certain as I can be. Harry sat back, rubbing his temples. The pattern is clear now. Slytherin's locket, Hufflepuff's cup, Ravenclaw's diadem, the Gaunt family ring, and his childhood diary. 5 anchors, plus the main soul fragment that still exists as a wraith. Plus the one that was in your scar, Bill Weasley added from where he sat cataloguing their research. The eldest Weasley son had proven invaluable in their Horcrux hunt, his curse-breaking expertise helping identify the dark magical signatures. 6 fragments, then, Harry corrected. 7 parts in total, counting the main piece. 7 is magically significant, Remus noted. Especially in dark rituals. Harry nodded, rising to his feet with the fluid grace he'd developed through years of goblin combat training. Though still small for his age, his movements had the controlled precision of someone much older. We've confirmed 3 locations, Harry summarized. The diadem is at Hogwarts in the Room of Requirement. The diary is with Lucius Malfoy, Augusta's source in the Wisengamot confirmed that. And the locket. He frowned. That's where things get complicated. Bill unrolled a parchment containing their latest intelligence. According to Creature's testimony, Regulus Black stole the original locket from its hiding place and ordered his house elf to destroy it. But Creature couldn't break it, so it remains at Grimmauld Place. We need to retrieve it, Harry decided. Which means dealing with Sirius Black. The name hung in the air. For the past year, Harry had been quietly investigating his godfather's case. The story never sat right with him, the trusted friend suddenly betraying the Potters, the street full of witnesses, the convenient finger left behind. The trial transcripts still haven't surfaced, Remus said, his voice tight with suppressed emotion. Harry knew the subject of Sirius was painful for him, betrayal compounded by lingering doubt. Because there was no trial, Harry stated flatly. Director Bones confirmed it last month. Sirius was sent straight to Azkaban on Crouch's orders during the post-war chaos. That's not legal, Bill protested. Even suspected Death Eaters have the right to trial. Apparently not during wartime, Harry said grimly. Or not if Dumbledore testifies they were secret keeper. Remus's head snapped up. Dumbledore testified? You never mentioned that. Because I just learned it yesterday. Harry met Remus's amber gaze. Moony, I think we've been working with false information. Everything about Sirius's case feels wrong. What exactly are you proposing? Gornick asked, though his knowing expression suggested he already understood. Harry smiled thinly. It's time for the Goblin King to make a formal request of the Ministry, a trial for Sirius Black. Fudge will never agree, Bill warned. It would mean admitting the Ministry imprisoned someone illegally for 7 years. Fudge will agree, Harry countered, because I'll give him something he wants more than saving face. He pulled another scroll from the pile, a draft trade agreement between the Goblin Nation and the Ministry that had stalled for decades. You'd use this as leverage? Gornick looked surprised. The Council has rejected this agreement 3 times. The original version, yes, Harry acknowledged. But I've made revisions that protect Goblin interests while giving the Ministry enough to claim victory. Fudge gets to announce a historic treaty. I get my godfather's case reopened. Remus stared at him. You've been planning this. For months, Harry admitted. Sirius is family, my family. And if he's innocent. Then your parents were betrayed by someone else, Remus finished quietly. Someone still free. Exactly. The conversation shifted to logistics, how to approach Fudge, what evidence to present, and contingency plans if the minister refused. Throughout, Harry maintained the focused calm that had become his hallmark, weighing options with a maturity that belied his years. Later, after the others had left, Ragnarok joined Harry in his chambers for their weekly private council. You didn't mention the prophecy connection, the Goblin director observed, settling into a chair scaled for his stature. Harry looked up from the letter he was drafting to Amelia Bones. It wasn't relevant to their roles. But it's relevant to yours, Ragnarok pressed. The Department of Mysteries confirms the prophecy orb glows brighter when Black's name is mentioned in its presence. His fate is somehow entwined with yours. Harry set down his quill. All the more reason to free him, if he's innocent. I need all the allies I can trust for what's coming. Ragnarok studied him with ancient eyes. The war approaches faster than we anticipated. Sightings of dark magic in Albania have increased. Our sources report movement among known Death Eaters who escaped justice. Voldemort grows stronger, Harry agreed. The parasite he's become is seeking a permanent host, or a way to regenerate his body. Are you prepared for what must be done when you face him? Harry's expression hardened, a glimpse of the leader he was becoming beneath the child's face. I'm prepared to do whatever is necessary to stop him permanently. But first, we find and destroy his anchors. Ragnarok nodded approvingly. You've grown wise beyond your years, my king. The crown has shaped you well. The crown revealed what was already there, Harry corrected gently. As you well know, Director. The goblin's mouth twitched in what passed for a smile. Indeed. Now, about tomorrow's meeting with the Centaur delegation. The Ministry of Magic atrium fell silent as Harry's entourage emerged from the central fireplace. At 8.5, Harry cut an imposing figure despite his youth, the goblin-crafted crown gleaming upon his head, formal robes of deep green and bronze flowing around him, and an expression of calm authority that made even senior ministry officials step aside. Gornik and 5 goblin guards flanked him, their ceremonial armor glinting in the magical light. Behind them came Remus Lupin and Augusta Longbottom, representing his wizarding council. The unusual procession drew stares and whispers as they proceeded toward the security desk. King Harry Potter Ravenclaw Slytherin for his appointment with Minister Fudge, Gornik announced to the wide-eyed security wizard. Why yes, of course, the man stammered, fumbling with his list. Wands, please. My guards carry no wands, Harry replied smoothly. And as a diplomatic representative of a sovereign nation, I am exempt from wand registration under Section 12 of the International Confederation Treaty. The security wizard looked helplessly toward his supervisor, who quickly intervened. Of course, of course. Please proceed, Your Majesty. The minister is expecting you. Their progress through the ministry was marked by turning heads and hushed conversations. Though Harry had made several public appearances since the solstice celebration 2 years ago, his presence still created a stir, particularly in the heart of wizarding government. They still don't know what to make of you, Augusta murmured as they entered the elevator. A child king who speaks like a diplomat and moves like a warrior. Good, Harry replied quietly. Uncertainty breeds caution. Caution gives us room to maneuver. Fudge's outer office was staffed by Percy Weasley, recently appointed as junior assistant to the minister. The young man's pompous demeanor cracked slightly at the sight of Harry's entourage. Minister Fudge is ready for you, Mr. Potter, Percy announced, emphasizing the ordinary title in what he clearly thought was a display of ministerial authority. Harry merely smiled. Thank you, Mr. Weasley. Your brother Bill speaks highly of your ambition. Percy blinked, momentarily thrown by the personal reference, before recovering his professional facade and ushering them into the inner office. Cornelius Fudge rose from behind his imposing desk, his politician's smile firmly in place. Harry. Wonderful to see you again, my boy. You're looking well. Minister, Harry inclined his head, neither correcting the familiar address nor returning it. Thank you for agreeing to meet on such short notice. Always time for the boy who lived, Fudge declared magnanimously. His eyes darted nervously to the goblin guards. Though perhaps your entourage could wait outside. Sensitive matters of state, you understand. My guards stay, Harry said firmly. But if you prefer, we can limit the meeting to just yourself, myself, Director Ragnarok, and Madame Longbottom. Fudge hesitated, clearly calculating political advantages. Augusta Longbottom's presence was both a courtesy and a statement. Her influence in the Wisengamot made her a valuable witness to any agreement. Very well, he conceded. Please, be seated. Tea. Once they were settled with refreshments, which Harry's guards discreetly checked before allowing him to consume, Fudge leaned forward with what he clearly thought was an avuncular expression. Now then, Harry. Your letter mentioned a proposal of mutual benefit. Something about the Goblin trade agreement. Among other things, Harry confirmed. He withdrew a sealed parchment from inside his robes. This contains the revised treaty, addressing the Ministry's security concerns while preserving Goblin crafting rights. Fudge's eyes lit up as he accepted the document. The treaty had been a political quagmire for decades, securing it would be a significant achievement for his administration. This is most generous, he murmured, scanning the terms. The Goblin Liaison Office has been attempting to negotiate these terms for years. The Goblin Nation values fair exchange, Harry replied. And in that spirit, I have a request in return. Fudge's enthusiasm dimmed slightly. Yes. I wish to formally petition for a trial for Sirius Black. The minister's teacup clattered against its saucer. Black. But he was convicted of, he was never tried, Harry interrupted calmly. As you're undoubtedly aware, Minister. I've reviewed the records from that period. There was no trial, no presentation of evidence, not even a formal interrogation under Veritaserum. Fudge's complexion had taken on a grayish tinge. Those were different times. The war, emergency powers. Indeed, Augusta Longbottom interjected. Which is why this is an opportunity, Minister, not a threat. You weren't in office when these irregularities occurred. You can position yourself as the minister who ensures justice is properly served, regardless of the timing. Fudge's political instincts visibly warred with his caution. Why Black, specifically? There were others imprisoned during that period. He's my godfather, Harry said simply. And my magical guardian, if he's innocent. I have the right to know the truth. The public would never accept, the public will accept what you tell them to accept, Cornelius, Augusta said bluntly. You're rather good at managing public opinion when it suits you. Fudge studied Harry with newfound wariness. This seems a high price for a trade agreement. The treaty is merely one component, Harry countered. There's also this. He produced a second document, a formal declaration of Goblin support for Fudge's upcoming re-election campaign. The minister's eyes widened. Goblin endorsement was rare and carried significant weight with the financial sector of Wizarding Britain. I see you understand the value of this, Harry observed. In addition, I'm prepared to make a joint public appearance with you to announce both the treaty and the trial, emphasizing your commitment to justice and international cooperation. Fudge was practically salivating now. A photo opportunity with the boy who lived in Goblin King would dominate the prophet for days. It would need to be handled delicately, he mused. A closed trial first, perhaps. With Auror security. And if he's guilty, he returns to Azkaban, Harry said firmly. I seek justice, not preferential treatment. After further negotiation of terms, Fudge finally agreed. The trial would be scheduled for the following month, conducted by the full Wisengamot with Amelia Bones presiding. In return, Harry would publicly support the trade agreement and appear with Fudge at 3 ministry functions over the next year. As they prepared to depart, Fudge cleared his throat. One more thing, Harry. Dumbledore has been making inquiries about your education. As you approach Hogwarts age, there are expectations. My education exceeds ministry standards in all subjects, Harry replied. As verified by your own examiners last year. Yes, your academic progress is remarkable, Fudge acknowledged. But there are concerns about your socialization. Children need peers, after all. Harry studied the minister thoughtfully. These concerns come from Dumbledore, not you. Fudge had the grace to look embarrassed. Well, as Chief Warlock and Headmaster, his opinion carries weight. Tell Headmaster Dumbledore that I look forward to attending Hogwarts when I turn 11, as is traditional, Harry said. Until then, my education remains under Goblin and Wizarding Council supervision, as has been established. After they left the minister's office, Remus raised an eyebrow. You didn't mention your plans for the coming year. No need to show all our cards, Harry replied with a small smile. The socialization concern is valid, even if Dumbledore's using it manipulatively. That's why we're proceeding with the integration program. The integration program was Harry's latest initiative, bringing select wizarding children to Gringotts for educational and cultural exchanges. Starting with children from his council members' families, the program would gradually expand to include students from diverse backgrounds, preparing them to interact with Harry at Hogwarts without being overwhelmed by his status. Neville's looking forward to it, Augusta commented. The boy needs friends his own age, and exposure to different magical traditions will serve him well. Susan Bones and the Weasley children are confirmed too, Remus added. Though Molly needed some convincing about letting her youngest into Goblin territory. Bill's influence helped there, Harry noted. And having other children around will be nice. For a moment, the political strategist faded, leaving just an 8-year-old boy who'd never had normal friendships. Gornick, walking beside Harry, gave him a rare gentle nudge. Just don't expect them to beat you at Gobtus. I've been training you too well for that. Harry grinned, a glimpse of childish delight breaking through his usual composure. We'll see about that. The trial of Sirius Black became the wizarding event of the year. Despite Fudge's hopes for a quiet proceeding, the story leaked to the press, likely through Dumbledore's connections, creating a media frenzy. The day of the trial, the Ministry atrium was packed with reporters and spectators, all straining for a glimpse of the infamous prisoner. Harry sat in the visitors' gallery of courtroom 10, Remus tense beside him. They had agreed it would be inappropriate for Harry to join the Wizengamot members despite his hereditary seats, given his personal connection to the case. The room fell silent as the door opened and Sirius Black was led in, flanked by Aurors. Harry's breath caught. The man barely resembled the laughing young wizard from the photographs McGonagall had given him. 7 years in Azkaban had left him gaunt and haunted, his once handsome face now skeletal, long black hair matted and unkempt. Yet he walked with his head held high, and when his eyes swept the courtroom, there was still intelligence and defiance in their grey depths. Those eyes found Harry, widened in shock, then filled with such naked emotion that Harry had to look away. It was too raw, too personal for this public setting. Amelia Bones called the court to order. The Wizengamot meets today to conduct the trial of Sirius Orion Black, charged with betraying James and Lily Potter to he who must not be named, resulting in their deaths, and with the murder of Peter Pettigrew and 12 Muggles. As this is a reopening of a case previously adjudicated, we will begin with questioning under Veritaserum. Sirius spoke for the first time, his voice raspy from disuse. I consent to Veritaserum. I've waited 7 years to tell the truth. The potion was administered by a ministry healer, 3 drops on the tongue. Sirius's eyes glazed slightly as the truth serum took effect. State your name, Bones began. Sirius Orion Black. Were you the secret keeper for James and Lily Potter? No. I was not. A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Who was the secret keeper? Peter Pettigrew. We switched at the last moment. I thought I would be the obvious target, so I suggested Peter as a decoy. It was the worst mistake of my life. Even through the potion's emotionless effect, the raw pain in his voice was unmistakable. Did you betray James and Lily Potter to Lord Voldemort? Flinches at the name echoed around the chamber, but Sirius answered steadily. Never. I would have died before betraying them. Did you kill Peter Pettigrew and 12 Muggles on the morning of November 1, 1981? I did not. Peter shouted that I had betrayed James and Lily, then cast a blasting curse behind his back, killed the Muggles, cut off his own finger, and transformed into his animagus form, a rat, and escaped down the sewer. This caused an uproar in the courtroom. Bones had to pound her gavel repeatedly for order. Animagus form? Was Pettigrew a registered animagus? No. James, Peter and I became unregistered animagi during our 5th year at Hogwarts to accompany Remus Lupin during his werewolf transformations. Remus stiffened beside Harry. Bones glanced their way briefly before continuing. What is your animagus form? A large black dog. Where is Peter Pettigrew now? I don't know. Hiding, probably as a rat with a wizarding family. He's missing a toe on his front right paw, corresponding to the finger he cut off. The questioning continued for another hour, covering everything from Sirius's recruitment by Dumbledore to the Order of the Phoenix, to the events immediately following the Potters' deaths, to his years in Azkaban. Throughout, his testimony remained consistent: he was innocent of all charges. When the Veritaserum wore off, Bones called for additional witnesses. Remus testified about the Marauder's friendship and Pettigrew's character. Albus Dumbledore, looking grave, admitted he had assumed Sirius was secret keeper based on James Potter's statements, but had no direct knowledge of the final arrangement. I deeply regret, Dumbledore concluded, that I did not insist on a proper trial at the time. My certainty about Mr. Black's role contributed to a miscarriage of justice. Finally, Harry was called to testify, not about the events themselves, which occurred before his memory, but about the heritage test that had listed Sirius Black as his godfather and magical guardian. The magic that identifies such relationships cannot be fooled, Harry explained to the Wizengamot. It recognized the godfather bond despite 7 years of separation, which suggests the bond remains intact. Such bonds break upon betrayal. When all testimony concluded, the Wizengamot deliberated for less than 20 minutes. The verdict, when announced, was unanimous: not guilty on all charges. Sirius Orion Black, you are hereby cleared of all charges and shall receive compensation for wrongful imprisonment in the amount of 50,000 galleons per year served, Bones declared. Your rights, titles, and positions are fully restored. This court offers its sincere apology for the miscarriage of justice in your case. Sirius stood stunned as the chains fell away from his wrists. His eyes found Harry again, searching, questioning. Harry nodded once, a subtle gesture of acknowledgement. They would have their reunion, but not here under hundreds of watching eyes. Later, in a private room at the Ministry, Sirius paced like the caged animal he'd been for 7 years. When Harry entered with Remus, he froze. Harry, he whispered, his voice breaking. You look so like James, but, my mother's eyes, Harry finished with a small smile. I've heard that a few times. Sirius took a hesitant step forward, then stopped, uncertainty written across his gaunt face. I don't know if you remember me. You were so small when. I don't remember, Harry admitted. But I've seen photographs. And I know you're my godfather. That means something to me. Sirius swallowed hard. I should have been there for you. Instead, I went after Peter, let rage cloud my judgment. You're here now, Harry said simply. That's what matters. Something in his mature tone made Sirius blink. You're not what I expected. Few people are, after 7 years in Azkaban, Remus interjected dryly, breaking the tension. Sirius barked a laugh, a rusty, disused sound. Moony. Still the voice of reason. His expression softened as he looked between them. So. I hear my godson is a king these days. Royal life treating you well? It has its moments, Harry replied with a hint of mischief. How do you feel about living underground? Sirius raised an eyebrow. With goblins? Better than with dementors, I'd imagine. You'll need time to recover, Harry said more seriously. The goblins have healers specializing in mind magic who can help with the dementor exposure. And there's a lot to catch you up on. Like how my 8-year-old godson orchestrated a political maneuver that freed a prisoner from Azkaban and secured a historic treaty in one stroke. Sirius suggested. Harry looked sheepish. You heard about that? Amelia Bones mentioned it during processing. Said I should be proud. Sirius's gaze softened. I am, you know. Proud. And grateful. But also, concerned about what you've had to become. It was precisely the right thing to say. Not flattery or awe, but genuine concern for the child beneath the crown. In that moment, Harry felt the first real connection to this stranger who was his family. I'm still learning who I am, Harry admitted quietly. Beyond the titles and expectations. Having you here might help with that. Sirius nodded, a fierce protectiveness entering his expression. I'm not the godfather you deserved these past years. But I promise you this, Harry, from now on, your well-being comes first. Before politics, before prophecies, before anything else. It was a promise Harry hadn't realized he needed to hear. Sirius Black's recovery proceeded in stages. The physical effects of Azkaban, malnutrition, muscle atrophy, vitamin deficiencies, responded well to intensive treatment from goblin and wizarding healers. The psychological damage proved more stubborn. Nightmares plagued him nightly. Mood swings took him from manic energy to brooding silence in moments. His trust in others had been fundamentally damaged, leaving him suspicious of everyone except Harry and Remus. It's the Dementor exposure, explained Silverleaf, a goblin mind healer who specialized in trauma. 7 years surrounded by creatures that feed on happiness leaves lasting damage to the soul's ability to process positive emotions. Despite these challenges, Sirius threw himself into learning about Harry's life and responsibilities. He attended council meetings, studied goblin culture, and slowly integrated into the unusual community Harry had built around himself. His relationship with the goblins was initially tense. Black family history included several goblin rebellions, but his obvious devotion to Harry eventually won grudging acceptance. His relationship with Harry himself evolved more naturally than anyone expected. You don't have to call me, my king, like everyone else, Harry told him one evening as they played wizard's chess in Harry's chambers. Sirius snorted. I should think not. I changed your nappies, kiddo. Harry wrinkled his nose. That's worse than my king. How about just Harry? Sirius suggested, moving his knight. When it's just us. I'd like that, Harry admitted. Everyone else sees the crown first. Not me. Sirius's gray eyes, clearer now after months of healing, held Harry's gaze. I see James's chin and Lily's stubbornness and a bit of Remus's bookishness that they must have rubbed off on you. The crown's just something you wear. Harry smiled, a genuine childlike expression that rarely emerged in public. Check, he said, moving his queen. Sirius groaned. And apparently Slytherin's cunning. Should have seen that coming. As Sirius recovered, he became an unexpected asset to Harry's Horcrux hunt. The Black family library, accessible to him as the restored Lord Black, contained some of the darkest books in Britain, including rare texts on soul magic. It's revolting, Sirius declared after a research session, shoving away a particularly nasty tome. But it confirms your theory. Splitting the soul 7 ways is theoretically possible, though no one's documented actually doing it before. So we have 6 pieces to find, Harry confirmed. One's been destroyed, the fragment in my scar. One's at Hogwarts in the Room of Requirement. One's at Malfoy Manor. One's at Grimmauld Place. That leaves 2 unaccounted for. The ring and the cup, Remus said, consulting their notes. The ring was last known to be at the Gaunt Shack near Little Hangleton. The cup, no confirmed location. We should start with the ones we can access, Bill Weasley suggested. The locket at Grimmauld Place seems most straightforward. Sirius grimaced. Nothing about that house is straightforward. It's been festering with dark magic for generations, and my dear mother's portrait probably won't welcome me home. Nevertheless, a week later, a small expedition set out for 12, Grimmauld Place. Harry, Sirius, Remus, Bill, and 2 goblin warriors trained in curse-breaking. What they found exceeded even Sirius's dire warnings. The ancestral black home had deteriorated into a dark, decaying mockery of its former grandeur. Dust covered every surface, doxies infested the curtains, and a boggart had taken up residence in a writing desk. The house elf, Creature, was nearly as decrepit as the house itself, ancient, bent with age, muttering vitriol under his breath. "Blood traitor master returns with half-breeds and creatures," he croaked upon seeing them. "What would my poor mistress say?" She said plenty, as it turned out. The moment they entered the main hall, a portrait hidden behind velvet curtains began to shriek invectives that made even the hardened goblin warriors raise their eyebrows. "Filth! Scum! Defiling the house of my fathers!" Sirius grimaced. "Mother! Charming as ever!" It took significant effort, and eventually a silencing charm cast in Parseltongue by Harry, to quiet Walburga Black's portrait. Dealing with Creature proved more delicate. "We need to talk about the locket," Harry told the elf directly. "The one Regulus gave you to destroy." Creature froze, his bloodshot eyes widening. "How does the half-blood know of Master Regulus's locket?" "Because I'm hunting the same dark wizard who created it," Harry replied. "The same one Regulus died defying." The story that emerged was heartbreaking. Regulus Black, Sirius's younger brother, had loaned Creature to Voldemort for a mission. When the elf returned, barely alive after being forced to drink a terrible potion and left to die, Regulus had realized the truth about his master. He had returned to the cave with Creature, retrieved the real locket, and ordered the elf to destroy it before being dragged to his death by Inferi. Creature tried, oh how Creature tried, the elf sobbed. Nothing worked. Not fire, not hammers, not elf magic. Creature failed Master Regulus's last command. "You didn't fail," Harry said gently. "The locket can only be destroyed by very specific means. We know how to do it properly now. You will destroy it?" Creature looked up, desperate hope in his ancient face. "You will finish Master Regulus's work?" "We will," Harry promised. "Can you bring it to us?" The locket itself was deceptively beautiful, heavy gold with an ornate S inlaid in emeralds. Yet even without touching it, Harry could sense the malevolence within, a darkness that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. "It feels aware," Sirius murmured, looking disturbed. "It is," Harry confirmed. "In a limited way. The soul fragment can influence those nearby, especially if they wear it." Bill cast several diagnostic spells, careful not to touch the Horcrux directly. Nasty protections. Compulsion charms, paranoia enhancers, even a low-level possession vector. No wonder Creature couldn't destroy it, it was actively fighting back. "Can we destroy it here?" Remus asked. Harry shook his head. "Too risky. We'll take it back to Gringotts and use the purification chamber. The same one that removed the fragment from my scar." Before leaving, Harry turned to Creature. "Would you like to come with us? To see Master Regulus's final order fulfilled?" The change in the old elf was remarkable. He stood straighter, a new purpose lighting his rheumy eyes. Creature would be honored. The destruction of the locket Horcrux was a controlled but violent affair. In the purification chamber deep beneath Gringotts, goblin elders surrounded the silver pool where the locket had been placed. Harry, as both Goblin King and Parselmouth, had the task of opening the locket so the soul fragment could be exposed. "Open," he commanded in Parseltongue. The locket clicked open, and black smoke poured forth, coalescing into a shape, not the snake-like visage that had emerged from Harry's scar, but a younger, handsome face that Harry recognized from Slytherin's memories. "Tom Riddle," he whispered. The smoky apparition smiled coldly. "The boy king," it hissed in Parseltongue. "Playing at greatness while hiding underground with creatures. I see your fears," Harry Potter. Your doubt. Your worry that you're merely a puppet with the founders pulling your strings. You're the puppet, Harry replied steadily. A fragment of a broken soul, preserved only through murder and cowardice. The Horcrux riddle's handsome face contorted with rage. It lunged toward Harry, but the silver liquid of the purification pool rose in response, forming a barrier. Now! Harry commanded. Ragnarok plunged his crystal-tipped staff into the pool. The goblin elders began their chant. Basilisk venom, harvested from Slytherin's Chamber of Secrets during Harry's second visit to Hogwarts, was poured into the mixture. The Horcrux screamed, a high, inhuman sound that made everyone present cover their ears. The smoky apparition writhed and twisted, trying to escape the silver liquid as it consumed the malevolent energy. With a final, shattering shriek, it dissolved into nothing. The locket itself remained, blackened and warped but intact. When the ritual concluded, Creature approached the edge of the pool, tears streaming down his wrinkled face. Master Regulus can rest now, he whispered. Creature has fulfilled his final order. Harry lifted the destroyed locket and placed it gently in the elf's gnarled hands. Take it back to Grimmauld Place. Put it somewhere to honor Regulus's sacrifice. The old elf clutched the locket to his chest and bowed low. Master Harry is truly great wizard. Creature will serve the House of Potterblack faithfully. Over the next year, Harry's team made significant progress in their Horcrux hunt. The diadem was retrieved from Hogwarts during a seemingly casual visit, where Harry had distracted Dumbledore with discussions about his upcoming enrollment while Sirius, in dog form, and Bill slipped away to the Room of Requirement. Its destruction followed the same ritual pattern as the locket, though the soul fragment inside was weaker, less defined, suggesting it had been created later in Voldemort's Horcrux-making process. The diary proved more challenging. Lucius Malfoy kept it well protected within his manor, and despite Augusta Longbottom's political connections, they couldn't find a legitimate way to access it. We could raid the place, Sirius suggested during a strategy session. The DMLE has authority to search for dark artifacts. On what grounds? Remus countered. We can't exactly tell Amelia Bones we're hunting Horcruxes without explaining how we know about them. Perhaps a different approach, Harry mused. Malfoy values influence and status above all else. What if we offered him something he wants more than the diary? Like what? Bill asked. What could possibly? He stopped, eyes widening as he looked at Harry. You're not suggesting. A private audience with the Goblin King, Harry confirmed. Access to financial opportunities not available to other wizards. Recognition as a special advisor on pureblood affairs. That's insane, Sirius protested. Malfoy was a Death Eater. Was being the operative word, Harry pointed out. He's a survivor first, Death Eater second. He switched sides when Voldemort fell. He'll do it again if the incentives are right. It's manipulative, Remus said slowly. Slytherin would approve. Indeed I do, came the founder's impression, so clearly that Harry almost thought the others could hear it too. The plan worked with surprising ease. Lucius Malfoy accepted the invitation to a private financial consultation at Gringotts, bringing his son Draco along at Harry's specific request. While the boys were given a tour of the upper levels by Gornick, the adults negotiated. Your financial acumen is well known, Lord Malfoy, Harry began. The Goblin Nation respects competence in monetary matters, regardless of other considerations. Malfoy's pale eyes gleamed with calculation. How refreshing to find such pragmatism in one so young. Pragmatism is essential for survival, Harry replied. As I'm sure you discovered after the war. The implied reference to Malfoy's convenient defection hung in the air. Rather than taking offense, the aristocrat smiled thinly. Indeed. Adaptation is the hallmark of true power. Harry leaned forward. I'm offering you something unique, Lord Malfoy. A position as special advisor to the Goblin King on wizarding affairs. Access to investment opportunities normally reserved for Goblin citizens. And a place for Draco in the cultural exchange program, giving him connections and knowledge his peers will lack. Malfoy's expression remained controlled, but Harry could see the naked ambition in his eyes. A generous offer. One wonders what you seek in return. An equally unique item, Harry said carefully. A certain diary once belonging to Tom Marvolo Riddle. I believe it came into your possession years ago. The blood drained from Malfoy's face. I don't, let's not insult each other's intelligence, Harry interrupted gently. The diary is a liability to you now. Its purpose was to be used, not stored. Yet using it would bring investigation. I'm offering you a clean exchange, the diary for advantages your gold cannot buy. After further negotiation, including an unbreakable vow that the transaction would remain confidential, Malfoy agreed. 2 days later, the diary was delivered by House Elf to a designated drop point. I can't believe that worked, Sirius said as they examined the innocent-looking black book in Harry's warded study. Malfoy actually gave up a piece of his master's soul for political advantage. He doesn't know what it is, Harry reminded him. Just that it's dark and valuable to us. And he's hedging his bets. If Voldemort returns, Lucius can claim it was taken by force or trickery. If Voldemort doesn't return, he has a privileged position with the Goblin King. The diary's destruction proved different from the previous Horcruxes. When placed in a purification pool, the soul fragment manifested not as smoke but as ink, spreading through the silver liquid in poisonous tendrils before being consumed by the basilisk venom. 3 down, Bill said when the ritual concluded. 2 to go. The remaining Horcruxes, Hufflepuff's cup and the Gaunt family ring, proved far more elusive. The cup had vanished after Hepzibah Smith's murder decades ago. The ring's last known location was the decrepit Gaunt shack, but when their team investigated, they found the building collapsed and the ring missing. Someone else is hunting them, Harry realized. Dumbledore. Why wouldn't he tell us? Remus wondered. The same reason he does anything, Sirius said bitterly. Because only he can be trusted with the complete picture. Harry was more measured. He doesn't know we're hunting them too. From his perspective, sharing such dangerous knowledge with a child would be irresponsible. You're not an ordinary child, Bill pointed out. No, Harry agreed. But I am still 9 years old. That fact alone makes many adults discount me, regardless of my position or abilities. The Horcrux hunt stalled temporarily as they regrouped and reconsidered their approach. Meanwhile, Harry's other initiatives continued to develop. The integration program had expanded to include 20 wizarding children who regularly visited Gringotts for cultural and educational exchanges. Neville Longbottom, initially shy and uncertain, had blossomed under the Goblin combat trainer's attention. His confidence grew steadily, especially after he received a specially crafted wand from Ollivander during a supervised trip to Diagon Alley, Cypress and Phoenix Feather, 13 inches. Gran wanted me to use my father's wand, he confided to Harry during one of their training sessions. But Master Sharptooth said magic flows better through a matched conduit. The Weasley children brought chaotic energy to the usually ordered goblin halls. The twins, Fred and George, immediately befriended a pair of young goblin metalsmiths, leading to magical pranking devices that had Ragnarok alternating between amusement and exasperation. Ron, closer to Harry's age, initially seemed overwhelmed by the Goblin King's status but eventually relaxed enough to challenge him to wizard's chess, beating him soundly in their first match. Blimey, Ron had said, blinking in surprise at his victory. I thought you'd be, unbeatable at everything. Harry had laughed. Hardly. You should see Hermione Granger correct my arithmancy. Hermione, a Muggleborn which Minerva McGonagall had recommended for the program, approached Goblin culture with academic fervor. Her questions occasionally bordered on impertinent by Goblin standards, but her genuine respect and thirst for knowledge won her acceptance among the tutors. The Goblin approach to spell crafting is completely absent from Magical Theory by Adalbert Waffling, she complained to Harry after one lesson. It's a significant oversight in wizarding education. Most wizards don't think goblin magic is real magic, Harry explained. They see it as a lesser form because it doesn't use wands. That's just bigotry disguised as academic classification, Hermione declared with the righteous indignation of a 10-year-old discovering injustice. When we're at Hogwarts, we should start a study group to share what we've learned here. Harry smiled at her automatic inclusion of him in her plans. I'd like that. As his 10th birthday approached, preparations for Harry's eventual attendance at Hogwarts intensified. The political groundwork had been carefully laid through his public appearances and a cultural exchange program. The children who had gotten to know Harry as a person rather than just a title would help bridge the gap between him and the wider student body. Legal arrangements were equally thorough. Augusta had worked with Amelia Bones to draft special provisions for the Goblin King's attendance, including private quarters connected to both Ravenclaw and Slytherin areas, permission to maintain his Goblin Guard, and exemptions from certain school rules that would conflict with his sovereign status. Dumbledore had resisted some of these accommodations but eventually conceded when faced with the combined political pressure of the Wizengamot, the Ministry, and the Goblin Nation. Their relationship remained cordial but distant, each watching the other's moves with careful attention. On the morning of Harry's 10th birthday, he stood on the balcony of his chambers, looking out over the vast underground city that had become his home. 5 years had passed since the heritage test that changed his life, 5 years of learning, growing, and preparing for the role prophecy had thrust upon him. Physically, he remained small for his age, though regular exercise and proper nutrition had erased the signs of the Dursleys' neglect. His black hair still refused to lie flat, a trait that amused Sirius to no end. The lightning scar on his forehead had faded to a thin silver line, barely visible unless one knew to look for it. The most striking change was in his eyes, still Lily's emerald green, but now holding depths of knowledge beyond his years, occasionally shifting with hints of Ravenclaw's analytical curiosity or Slytherin's shrewd assessment. "Happy birthday, my king," came Gornik's voice from the doorway. Harry turned with a smile. "Thank you, my friend." Gornik, no longer the young guard assigned to a strange human king, but now the captain of the royal guard and Harry's closest goblin companion, gave a formal bow that didn't quite hide his affection. "The council awaits in the great hall. Along with numerous other well-wishers." "How numerous?" Harry asked suspiciously. Gornik's lips twitched. "Let's just say the cultural exchange program participants were enthusiastic in their planning." The enthusiasm became apparent when Harry entered the great hall to thunderous applause. Hundreds of goblins lined the tiered seating, with Harry's human friends and council members gathered near the central platform. Colorful banners hung from the ceiling, some with traditional goblin birthday blessings, others clearly created by the Weasley twins, judging by the animated dragons that occasionally belched actual flames. "Surprise!" shouted the assembled children, though the event had been on Harry's calendar for weeks. What followed was unlike any previous goblin celebration, a blend of solemn goblin rituals and chaotic wizarding party games. Ragnarok presented Harry with a ceremonial dagger marking his 10th year as king, while Mrs. Weasley contributed an enormous cake shaped like Gringotts, complete with tiny sugar goblins that scurried around its base. The highlight came when Sirius and Remus unveiled their gift, a custom-crafted racing broom with both goblin and wizard enchantments. The Nimbus Company provided the base model, Sirius explained, but the goblins enhanced the stability charms and added a few special features. "Such as?" Harry asked, admiring the sleek design. Remus grinned. "It responds to Parseltongue commands. And it has several security measures that make it impossible for anyone but you to fly it." "Brilliant!" Harry exclaimed, momentarily every bit a normal 10-year-old boy excited about a broom. Later, as the celebration continued around him, Harry found a quiet moment with Sirius and Remus. "1 year until Hogwarts," Sirius said, glancing at his godson. "Nervous?" "A bit," Harry admitted. "It's one thing to visit or have meetings there. Living there will be different." "You'll still have us," Remus reminded him. "I'll be teaching defense against the dark arts," Dumbledore finally agreed after Amelia made it a condition of your attendance, and Sirius will be nearby in Hogsmeade. And you'll have friends, Sirius added. Real ones, who see past the crown. Harry nodded, watching the children playing a modified version of Goblin Tag across the hall. Neville was laughing as he dodged Fred's attempt to tag him, his movements showing the confidence he'd developed over the past year. Ron and Hermione were arguing good-naturedly about the rules, while Ginny Weasley was outmaneuvering several goblin children with surprising agility. It won't be easy, Harry said quietly. Balancing everything, being a student and the boy who lived and the Goblin King. And we still haven't found all the Horcruxes. One challenge at a time, Remus advised. That's how your mother always approached problems. Harry smiled at the mention of Lily. Over the years, he'd collected dozens of stories about his parents from those who had known them, building a mental picture of the people they had been, not just the martyrs they became. Dad would say to prank anyone who stares too much, he guessed. Sirius barked a laugh. Absolutely. Though preferably not Minnie. She's terrifying when provoked. The conversation shifted to lighter topics, plans for the coming year, which subjects Harry was most looking forward to at Hogwarts, predictions about house sorting. For a while, Harry allowed himself to simply be a boy celebrating his birthday with family and friends. Later that night, when the guests had departed and the Great Hall had been cleared, Harry met with his core council for a more serious discussion. Voldemort grows stronger, he began without preamble. Our sources in Albania report increased magical disturbances in the forests where his wraith was last sighted. Bill nodded grimly. The darkness in the Dark Marks is intensifying too. Snape confirmed it during our last intelligence exchange. We've destroyed 3 Horcruxes, Harry continued. The fragment from my scar, the locket, and the diary. We believe Dumbledore has found and possibly destroyed the ring. That leaves only the cup unaccounted for. And then Voldemort himself, Augusta added. The wraith must be dealt with after the anchors are gone. Yes, Harry agreed. But first, Hogwarts. The statement hung in the air, its significance clear to everyone present. Hogwarts represented both opportunity and risk, bringing Harry directly into the wizarding world full-time, placing him in Dumbledore's territory, but also positioning him to build the bridges between magical communities that both prophecies foretold. The preparations are complete, Ragnarok reported. The Goblin Guards assigned to Hogwarts have been training specifically for that environment. The connected quarters have been arranged with both security and diplomacy in mind. And your special project has been completed. By special project, he meant the secure communication system Harry had commissioned, enchanted mirrors linked to similar devices in Gringotts, allowing instant contact regardless of Hogwarts' anti-transportation wards. Good, Harry said. And the Horcrux hunt will continue in my absence. Bill and I will focus on tracking the cup, Sirius confirmed. We have a new lead through the Lestrange Vault records. The meeting continued late into the night, fine-tuning plans and contingencies for the year ahead. When it finally concluded, Harry returned to his chambers, physically tired but mentally alert. He removed the crown and placed it on its pedestal, then changed into simple sleeping clothes. Though he no longer needed to wear the crown constantly, its magic had become part of him over the years, he still felt its absence when he set it aside. You've grown well into your role, Ravenclaw's impression observed. The coming year will test you differently. School politics can be as treacherous as goblin negotiations, Slytherin agreed. But you're well prepared. I hope so, Harry murmured, settling onto the window seat that overlooked the Goblin City. Everything changes once I step onto the Hogwarts Express. Change is inevitable, Ravenclaw noted. Growth is optional. Harry smiled at the familiar wisdom. Over the years, the founder impressions had become like inner mentors, present when needed, quiet when not, their knowledge integrated into his own thinking rather than overriding it. As he watched the Goblin City below, Harry reflected on his journey from the cupboard under the stairs to the throne room beneath Gringotts. From unwanted burden to prophesied king. From ignorant child to bridge builder between worlds. Tomorrow would bring new lessons, new challenges in his preparation for Hogwarts. But tonight, on his 10th birthday, Harry allowed himself a moment of quiet pride in how far he had come, and quiet determination for the path that lay ahead. The platform was crowded with families saying goodbye to children bound for Hogwarts. Steam billowed from the scarlet engine of the Hogwarts Express, shrouding the scene in a dreamlike haze. Parents hugged children, gave last-minute advice, extracted promises to write. Younger siblings watched enviously as their older brothers and sisters prepared to depart for another year of magical education. Into this familiar September ritual stepped an unfamiliar procession. Heads turned and conversations faltered as Harry Potter Ravenclaw Slytherin, Goblin King and Boy Who Lived, emerged from the barrier between platforms 9 and 10. At 11, Harry cut a striking figure, not because of his height, which remained modest, but because of his bearing. The crown sat upon his unruly black hair, gleaming with ancient magic. His formal robes, a blend of goblin and wizard styling in deep green with bronze and silver accents, set him apart from the standard Hogwarts uniforms around him. Flanking him were Gornak and another goblin guard, both in ceremonial armor polished to mirror brightness. Behind them came Sirius and Remus, the former grinning at the stares they were attracting, the latter carrying a small trunk that contained Harry's essential personal items. "Well," Sirius murmured, subtle entrance successfully avoided. Harry suppressed a smile. Was subtlety the goal? I must have missed that memo. A path cleared before them as they moved toward the train. Some families bowed instinctively before catching themselves. Others whispered behind their hands, pointing and staring. Children who hadn't participated in the cultural exchange program gazed with undisguised fascination at the goblin guards. Harry. Neville Longbottom pushed through the crowd, his confidence evident in the way he navigated the platform. Behind him came his grandmother Augusta, who gave Harry a formal nod of acknowledgement. "Neville," Harry greeted warmly. "Ready for our first year?" "As ready as I'll be," Neville replied with a grin. "Gran's been drilling me on Hogwarts protocol all summer." More familiar faces appeared, the Weasleys in their characteristic cluster of red hair, Hermione Granger with her parents looking slightly overwhelmed by the magical surroundings, Susan Bones accompanied by her Aunt Amelia. These children and their families moved comfortably in Harry's presence, having spent time with him at Gringotts over the past 2 years. "We've saved a compartment near the front," Ron informed him. Fred and George set up some discouragement for anyone trying to gawk at you. "Harmless but effective," George assured with a wink. "Mostly harmless," Fred amended. Goodbyes were exchanged, formal from the goblin guards who would remain on the platform until their relief arrived at Hogsmeade, affectionate from Sirius and Remus who would see Harry again at the castle. "Remember," Sirius said, kneeling to Harry's eye level despite the public setting, "you're going as a student first. The rest is important, but don't let it steal this experience from you." "I won't," Harry promised. "And you'll continue the other project?" "We're close," Sirius confirmed quietly. "Very close." With final hugs and handshakes, Harry boarded the train with his friends. As they settled into their compartment, enchanted by Hermione to be slightly larger than standard, Harry gazed out at platform 9 3/4, watching families wave farewell to their children. Strange to think this is how it begins for most wizarding children, he mused. This journey to Hogwarts. Most wizarding children aren't already running their own nation, Ron pointed out pragmatically. Hermione elbowed him. Honestly, Ron. What? It's true. Harry laughed, a genuine, carefree sound that made his friends smile in return. For a moment, the crown seemed to sit lighter on his head, the weight of 2 prophecies temporarily lifted from his shoulders. As the train whistle blew and the engine began to move, Harry felt a curious sense of both ending and beginning. His time at Gringotts had shaped him, prepared him, given him family and purpose beyond anything he could have imagined that day 5 years ago when Griphook had appeared on the Dursleys' doorstep. Now a new chapter was opening, Hogwarts, with its ancient halls and hidden secrets, its 4 houses and centuries of tradition. The place where Ravenclaw and Slytherin had once walked, where his parents had studied and laughed and fallen in love, where Voldemort had once been simply Tom Riddle before darkness consumed him. The place where, according to both prophecies, Harry's true destiny would unfold. The Hogwarts Express gathered speed, pulling away from London toward the Scottish Highlands. Inside a compartment near the front, the boy who lived, the Goblin King, the bridge builder between worlds, sat surrounded by friends who saw him as just Harry. It wasn't everything, but it was a beginning. And for now, that was enough. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.